Alrighty. We are live.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Ha! It worked.
Yay!
I saw the
It's taking
sound.
us how long? A year?
Saw the sound. I saw the GIF play.
You saw the sound? Hold on, I didn't know you had synesthesia.
Yes, I have powers, but I saw it on the little audio thing. So hopefully that worked. Hopefully everybody else heard it too, and it wasn't just me. Yeah. Blizzrad, thanks again for renewing your subscription on a 5-month streak. Ghost 1800 can confirm, saw the sound. Okay, sweet. I'm not the only one who's seeing sound right now. Yeah, thanks for joining. It was loud enough to see the sound. Yeah, well, and I have the sounds turned down in my headphones, so it might have been a little loud on your end. I'm not sure how to individually adjust that sound without adjusting everything else. I can do it on the sound alerts page. I'll just have to go in there.
Yeah.
If it's too loud, I can adjust it. But yeah. Well,
my head just got like really sinusy.
It's because of the sound. It was
Apparently, I felt it all the way from here.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Off to an auspicious start. Welcome back to episode 39 of the Pathfinders podcast. And we are
aiming at
52.
52.
I did count them. Yep.
Okay.
And and so we started. Was it the end of March last year?
It was somewhere near. I can't see windows. There we go. What was the March 7th? Actually, we're past the mark.
Oh man, so we've been doing this over a year. We're a year and a week.
Yeah. Last week it would have been the day before.
Yeah. Naz, your
Yeah.
mic sounds really distorted. Do you have your gain turned up or something? Or
Discord may have reset some settings. Let me check.
Because you don't.
Of course,
sound as good as you
everything's
usually
on.
do. Yeah.
What?
While
What?
you're doing
How?
that.
None.
So-
Stop it. Stop trying to do things.
This is the Pathfinders podcast. I am Tree0311 or Tree0311 here with my partner Nazeris while he's adjusting.
Hello,
his audio.
everyone.
And we are the Pathfinders, and we are charting the way through all the nebulous information surrounding Star Citizen and its development. And yes, Blizzrat, silly hats for everyone, especially my shiny head. Naz is louder than Tree as well. Okay, I will turn Naz down.
That's because my mic's just set to always whatever Tree is +1. That's how my mic is set up.
Turned him down for you guys, and I'm turning it down for me as well. Get to play around.
I wonder
with
if that's
my
where
screen
some of this distortion's coming from.
I don't know. It didn't happen before, but yeah. So this evening, we are going through the March 8th Roadmap Roundup, so last Wednesday, as well as the ShinyTracker reports. And then we are doing... Yeah, I think it's on... Naz, I think it's on your end too, because it sounds... You're... I don't know how to describe that. It just sounds kind of distorted. You're usually pretty clear. Hey, Access, how you doing? So yeah, and then we have a scanner anomaly on the underground facilities, and not just the development of the underground facilities, but we're going to tie it into the lore a little bit because when they first showed off the UGFs, that they're the new UGFs.
A lot quieter now.
There you go. It sounds a lot better. Hold on, let me turn you up.
Yes, Windows decided that it was going to put it back at 100.
All right, I'm turning you up for me. Nazeris, go ahead and give me a few bars, and I'll adjust your volume for the show as well.
Hello, everyone. It's going to be a good show today. We have some roadmap discussion, we have some UGF discussion, and actually some squadron discussion that I'm going to roll into when we talk about the roadmap stuff, because lots of squadron updates this week. And also a vehicle that should not be seen. I was going to say shall not be heard, but...
Yeah, you sound
not
better
been
for
seen.
me. So and Blizzrat is saying you sound better over the interwebs as
Are you
well.
saying the distortion's better, or are you saying there's a lot less distortion?
There's a lot less distortion. You sound much more clear. Did
That's good.
did Windows like have your mic turned way up or something? Or?
All the way up.
Oh, okay. Now I understand. Yeah.
It did that
So,
weird go to default.
yeah. Windows, don't you ever do that. You asked for permission, Windows. Damn it.
I'm sorry, I can't shut down because if if File Explorer is open, but I'll change your mic settings without asking. It's fine.
Yeah. But before we transition into our other screen with the window and get started with the Roadmap Roundup, we are going to talk about the Pathfinders podcast and our release cadence, because Naz and I...
So we're doing a letter for the chairman release cadence segment.
Yeah, oh god. Yes, except for we kind of already started, so it's really underway and we're just clarifying things. But
Yes.
We've always tried to do podcast every week, with some exceptions just due to scheduling and stuff. And it's a with the spectrum pulses and the scanner anomalies, it's a lot of work when, especially if there's a break in roadmap roundups or in roadmap updates. And so we're going to make things across the month a bit more regular. And so we generally have 2 roadmap roundups each month, as well as a one monthly report release for the one for the PU, one for the Squadron 42. But as you know, we cover both in one episode. So what we're going to be doing is each month we'll be doing an episode following the release of the monthly reports and covering those, and then we'll also be doing an episode following the release of each roadmap roundup, where we'll cover the roadmap roundup and updates to the progress tracker, ShinyTracker reports. And then we'll also, in those episodes, include either a spectrum pulse or a scanner anomaly. And a reminder, the differences between the spectrum pulses and the scanner anomalies is the spectrum pulse is a joint effort between Nazeris and I, where we are researching things in order to do sort of a joint presentation to you guys on a topic that is something that is, we're keeping our finger on the pulse of spectrum, but more just the community at large. On a topic, as well as it's a pulse across the spectrum, to fit with the theme of the Pathfinders, and sort of exploration and scanning, discovery, regarding Star Citizen's development. Whereas the scanner anomalies are things that Nazeris and I, just through our own machinations have, hey, we were thinking about this, and we're like, you know what, I want to dig into this topic and then present on it to the community. So we have a scanner anomaly today, which is one of mine, and next episode. So we don't have a roadmap roundup this week. We have one next week, and so the episode following that roadmap roundup will with that roadmap roundup, we'll have a scanner anomaly from Nazeris, and we're just going to sort of do it on a rotating basis. Based off of whether we have a topic for a scanner anomaly or for a spectrum pulse, or if Nazeris or I are going to be doing an individual thing. But yeah, that's so the generally we'll be doing 3 episodes a month. Now, if that makes sense, a monthly report episode and 2 episodes with the roadmap roundups and scanner anomalies or spectrum pulses. Instead of 4 episodes a month. And that way Nazeris and I aren't so stressed trying to come up with content and ideas for the spectrum pulses and the scanner anomalies. And we can also spend a little bit more time working on quality over quantity, as well as working on our individual content. Nazeris is building Nova Forge, as well as keeping his original channel up and going and doing different things and exploring what he wants to do. I'm still slowly, when I have a little bit of free time, petering away on trying to get my second short form video out. So we want to be able to do both. You could do 1 episode a month wondering where the whole sea is.
I could too. I could make a 1-hour video every single month of me just sitting there asking where's the whole sea.
Yeah, well, and with the monthly report, we basically get it mentioned every month and have been, for a while now. Of they did a little bit more work to it, and a little bit more work, and just a skosh more.
On like a side tangent, I'm pretty sure it's in the same spot the Pyro is. Like the team's there, and they just are working on it, but they have so much time till their update with it actually comes out. They're just like, oh yeah, we could tweak this like maybe 1% brighter or 1% more yellow. Just like they have just like so much time to polish Pyro and Whole C.
Yeah, well, and the whole C, like the whole A is a great little ship, but there's a big difference between the whole C and the whole A, and
very
the
much
whole
so.
B doesn't really bridge that gap all that much.
The
whole B is
was
really
actually
a bigger
very
whole
shocked.
A. Whereas the whole C really will set the tone for the D and the E, which is a big deal.
Very much so. The whole B is actually the cockpit is the same size as the Freelancer cockpit. As far as like exterior size, exterior width.
Pit the whole C and the BMM owners against each other in Pyro. Yeah. Let them fight.
Except you're forgetting something. The BMM doesn't exist. The Banu Miracle Machine.
Banu Miracle Machine. Eventually. Yep. Eventually it's gonna be a thing, but until then, yeah. Okay. Yeah, pit the whole C and the BMM owners against each other in Pyro without their ships. Just strand them on a planet and had them yelling and fighting each other.
Merchant Myth. Yeah, I've heard that one.
Yeah.
What's the Fight Club thing that
we don't talk about
Atmo
it.
does?
Yeah. Oh, Atmo Esports, the
Hurst and Hurt Locker.
Yep.
They should totally get together the two sides, the merchantman owners and the whole sea owners, like the haulers and the wannabe haulers, the what are they called? What are they called? The people
traders?
Who own merchantmen. No, they're not traders. They're the bazaar owners, the shop owners, people.
Whenever I think of the people who own the Banu Merchantmen, I think of the sort of traveling merchantmen that Robin Williams played in Aladdin, Aladdin cartoon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, come close. Oh, too close. Yeah. Oh, it broke. Yeah. So hopefully that update on the release cadence makes sense. On that note, I leave this Sunday. I'll be going to San Antonio, Texas for 2 months for some training with the Army. And the good part is I will be, not doing anything crazy. It's just a whole bunch of medical training for a long critical care course. And that while I'm there, I'm planning on Paul and Astropub Paul and Roadmap Jake Bradley, Jake Acapella. We are planning on getting together and having a drink, having a beer. While I'm there, I just have to wait till I get there to figure out my schedule. So I'll be doing that in lieu of going to.
Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Woo! Access 0096 subscribe for 4 months. Thank you so much for the subscription. But yeah, that the meeting up with Jake and Paul is what I'll be doing in lieu of going to Citizen Con, because I won't be able to make it, unfortunately, due to saw sound again. Shimpasta, welcome. Thanks for joining us this evening. On that note,
by the way.
So yeah, while I'm in Texas, I'll be meeting up with them, and then but because I don't know what my schedule will be like and I don't know how much free time I will have, the release cadence, when we'll be doing episodes, will be a little bit up in the air. So follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, join Nazeris' Discord to keep up to date on when we're going to be doing episodes and what we're going to be covering. So we're all going to be a little bit flexible over the next 2 months. And then
I forget where the GIF or clip came from, but it basically, this new schedule is straight out of the printer into the shredder.
Yep.
Takes out a printer, puts in file, puts in shredder.
Yeah. So let's see.
So I believe first off, we're doing the roadmap.
Yeah, so roadmap, and let me
Roadmap.
transition to the other screen. 1, 2, 3.
I'm missing a window. It's fine. It's fine. I can. It is. I was about to ask if everyone's played with the new Square PS yet, but no one's played it at all. So
Yeah. I've seen a few
what-
videos. Some people have been able to give it a try.
Yeah,
but
it's just really
not many.
sparse, and you know the whole the confirmation bias. If you see someone playing it, that obviously means that they were able to get in, not you. So people are like, streamers get access and we don't.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like I spent 3 hours on a stream not playing. You
the
could not with
conspiracy
that.
theory nonsense of streamers getting
like-
special access and special privileges, just absolute lunacy.
Yep, there's that. All right, I'm here now. Play what? Was that? Yeah, no. I heard it's slowly getting better. I've heard it's slowly getting better. I think yeah, there's a couple people on my like Twitch people that say they are playing Star Citizen, so I assume there's a lot of people in there. Like it's slowly getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Like bring back PTU. No, we can't go back. Just like the song says, we can't go back to Istanbul. Or can't go back to Constantinople. It's Istanbul now. You can't go back.
Oh yeah, yep. Well, Naz, why
All
don't
right.
you start us off like you usually do?
All right. So as I do every time, or as we do every time, I like to read the header of articles we're about to read, kind of verbatim, because this is CIG's words, and I want you guys to hear exactly what CIG is intending with this article. So, as we do every time, happy Wednesday, everyone. Every 2 weeks, we accompany the roadmap update with a brief explanatory note to give you insight into the decision-making that led to any changes. This is a part of an effort to make our communications more transparent, more specific, and more insightful to all of you who help make Star Citizen and Squadron 42 possible. With that said, let's go ahead and dive into this week's Roadmap Roundup, the CIG community team. So we got notable changes for March 8th, 2023. Did you want to start off or do you want me to start off?
Go for it.
There's only 2. So, okay. So the first one, we got the RSI links being added to the 319 column, which means whenever 319 comes out, it will have the RSI links, whatever that is, in it. And for those who says, oh, I know exactly what that is. That's the image we've been seeing forever. No, it's not. There never has been an image labeled RSI links. I looked up. I went back all the way. The image that wasn't the Ursa was only ever labeled RSI rover. Never was it labeled links. It could be the links, but I think, my opinion, that's the concept that became the Ursa. But anyway, it is building, implementing, and balancing of RSI's planetary rover, the Lynx, as a game-ready vehicle. So this will be straight to flyable. I think. I don't think the Lynx was ever sold on its own. I think it only came with the Phoenix.
Yeah, I don't think
And
it's
it never
ever
came
been
with the
sold
Carrack.
on its own. Yeah.
Yeah, it never came with the Carrack either. That was another misconception because the RSI rover image was on the Carrack. But this
And that predates the Ursa. So yeah,
yes, it predates the Ursa.
Yeah.
But the Lynx rover was sold with the Phoenix, the Constellation Phoenix. It is supposed to be the like luxury variant of the Ursa, kind of like not variant, but brother of the Ursa. So it's definitely a very nebulous vehicle.
Yeah, and they did say it. You know, the I think they said it was the cockpit is somewhat similar, but otherwise, you know, it is going to be a good bit different than the Ursa. And so like it'll be recognizable that it's from RSI and that it's from like sort of the same family. I can't speak.
Family formula, same difference.
Yeah. Of the Ursa rover, but it will be, you know, a distinctly different vehicle.
the timeline, and I will probably do this. Maybe not as a spectrum anomaly, but I don't know. We need to find something to call it the little tiny like tidbit research things because this is a really small one. The timeline between the Ursa, the G12, and the Lynx.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
the Lynx and G12 should be competitors, where the Ursa is much more utilitarian kind of APC than the G12. The G12 doesn't have that like stowaway in the background, in the back of the vehicle. So yeah. Anyway, you can take the next heading.
I'm looking forward to just finally just getting that
Just having it out. Yeah.
You know, because that's like so long time coming. Like I know everybody wants the Ranger because you know it's a motorcycle.
Yeah.
But you know the Lynx has been known about and speculated upon with zero concept art, you know, or anything forever. Like it is a literal unknown. It's a known unknown. Is what it is.
Do you know if Drake's shipyards are they on the ground?
Yep. Yeah, they're
So when we get the Kraken being built at Hurston's facilities on Magnus and the Ranger, we can recreate the shot from the Chris Pine version of Star Trek where he's riding the motorcycle next to the in progress building of the Enterprise.
Yeah. Yeah, Ghost 1800 says Ursa is supposedly like a civilian variant of a marine vehicle. Yeah, it's the lore around it is that there's a UE marine. The original is a UE marine vehicle, and they made a less robust civilian variant of it. So maybe there'll be variants or more variants of the Ursa in the future. We don't know.
Maybe we'll see a variant in Squadron.
Yeah,
I know it's Navy, but you gotta have some interaction with the Marines because like there's so much tension between the two. You can't not.
Yeah.
Medical Ursa when I know, right?
For sure. Especially
we also
to go
need
with
the Flatbed Spartan. Medical Ursa and Flatbed Spartan.
Yeah. Medical Ursa for treating people, and when they don't make it, you pile them up on the back of the Flatbed Spartan for taking to an underground facility for being turned into Soylent Green.
Oh my god.
That's my
resource system.
Me channeling, resource management, aka nothing goes to waste. You know, but that's me channeling Blizzbrad for the evening. That's as far as I'll go. So yeah, the progress tracker. So that was the only addition to the release view. It's great that it's coming in 3.19 because 3.19 is supposed to come with
and
before Invictus Launch Week or for like Invictus Launch Week, right?
Yes, 4.
So 2 months from now.
It's supposed to be early May. You mean weeks? You mean weeks?
No,
Do you mean months? 2 months? Yeah. I'm so out of loop. I keep thinking it's next month.
Yeah,
May. Okay. I think it's second week of May. First week of May.
Invictus Launch Week is the third week of May.
Third week. So they have the first 2 weeks of May to launch an entire another patch. We took an entire
it's just 3.18. So they're just going to do a 3.18.1 and then essentially a 3.18.2 with more stuff added in.
3.18.5. Let's give them credit.
Yeah. We're just going to have, it's just going to be the 3.17 cycle for a few patches, but they're, instead of calling it 3.17.2, they're going to call it, 3.19.
Yeah.
The progress tracker. So it says, with this publish, we're adding additional Q1 2023 and Q3 2023 schedules for downstream and upstream teams, respectively. So adding additional, they're not complete. So you can go through the progress tracker and you can, as well as the roadmap companion guide, the link is right here. You can see which teams are upstream and downstream, and you can see that there are teams that are...
I need to print that out.
both upstream and downstream that have not had their schedule extended out. So one I was looking at when I was doing the research for the scanner anomaly this evening is that it was one of the sandbox teams, which is an upstream team. Still, I think at least one, if not a couple of the sandbox teams, because there's EU Sandbox 1 and 2, and I think there's Montreal Sandbox is the other one now. And I think one or both are all haven't gotten their schedule out past Q2, which means they haven't been updated for Q3 2023. So they're this next Wednesday, when we get another Roadmap Roundup, we will likely get even more of these updates. And so, yeah, it's kind of frustrating that we're still getting Q1 work added to the schedule. Q1 being 2 weeks from being done for the upstream or the downstream teams. But this next starting in April, when we get the Q2 schedules for those teams, that those will be coming out a bit faster. It's just been getting dragged out as they've been changing. The first schedule update of the year from all the meetings in Q1 in January is the big one, and there's a lot of turmoil and change, and then after that things settle down a little bit, so to speak, as far as Star Citizen is concerned. So the only deliverable that was added to the progress tracker, and now this is the only deliverable that was added that wasn't on there before. When we get into the ShinyTracker reports, we'll be looking at how a lot of the deliverables have been changed from this most recent update. But the only thing added was additional derelict settlements. Settlements with both gameplay and social elements spread throughout the Stanton Wilderness using the Rastar tool. So if you remember, we did a big spectrum pulse on the Rastar tool back in November, because they did a Rastar presentation for CitizenCon, and then another, I think there wasn't there a follow-up ISC like a month after that? We got a bunch of Rastar information in short order. So Nazeris and I did a big spectrum pulse on that back in November, because Rastar version 1 was released to the devs in early fall, late summer last year. I don't remember when it was exactly. And so now they've been using the Rastar tool to, if you read the monthly reports, you can see that they have been going in and essentially making the most updated versions of the outposts and settlements in Pyro. It's like version 2 or what did they call it, Naz? Do you remember what the verbiage was?
Rastar?
For the outposts and settlements in Pyro, because I'd have to look it up. But basically, they're on like round 2 or 3 of the outposts in Pyro, and the way I read that was they already did the ones that were the the sort of civilian homestead ones, and now they're going out and doing the abandoned pirate ones. Now that they have the additional overlays added to the tool, and there's more updates to it as well. So they're adding more and more outposts and settlements of various types to Pyro. Pyro is going to have a lot of locations in it. But yeah, that's it for the Roadmap Roundup. Let's go ahead and we'll get into ShinyTracker. So again, if you are new to the podcast and you aren't familiar with the ShinyTracker, ShinyTracker.app is a tool that Nazeris and I pore over with the Roadmap Roundups in order to get additional information regarding the changes to the progress tracker. So if you remember from way back when, before the addition of the progress tracker, the roadmap on the release view would have things being released in or planned to be released for a certain patch, and they would have a certain number of tasks, and then a certain number of tasks completed, or a task finished towards completion of that task. And it was never presented well, because the number of tasks would go up as time went on, and they get more and more tasks done, but it was a slow crawl because more and more tasks would get added to it. And that's just the way that the production of these things work, because once you get started, you don't know what all the tasks are until you get started on a project. So as you get started on these projects, these game dev projects, you figure out, we have now, we got this done, but we also realized in doing this, we have to do this and this and this as well. That's what the project managers are for. And they never explained it very well, and people would always get all sorts of pissed off and think that CIG was making shit up. And it's like, no, that's not what works.
That's how
but the
works.
Yeah, but that information is still available in the progress tracker. It's just on the back end because the way the progress tracker works on the website now, it doesn't have the tools, I guess you'd say, to portray that information. It doesn't have the tools to show breaks in development on a deliverable. This sprint may not, on here, this sprint may not go be continuous from here to here. It may have a break in between here and here, but it can't show those breaks. It only shows that the work started here and the work ended here. And that's, all there is to it. But you can, using the ShinyTracker tools, you can see more information about the different sprints and who's working on them, how many tasks they have to do, when there's breaks in those sprints, when something stops getting worked on, when they pick it back up. But it isn't super easy to read, and it takes a little bit of practice. So that's why we try to go over it, the podcast. So let's look at the Delta report.
Yes, let's, because I have something that I just found that I didn't see before.
In the Delta report, or
yeah, it's a bit further down, but it's fine.
Okay. So as you can see, Delta report, reveals that they added the deliverable for additional derelict settlements. The sprint goes from the beginning of January 2023 to goes to the end of June, but that's for the Montreal Sandbox team, which, if I remember correctly, give it a second. Montreal Sandbox year. So Montreal Sandbox has the sprint for building interiors goes out into Q3, but underground facilities goes only to the end of Q2. And additional derelict settlements only goes out to the end of Q2. So I don't think that they have gotten all of their work scheduled. I think that we'll probably see these sprints get updated for additional derelict settlements and underground facilities, or at that, or maybe that's when they intend to have the work done. We don't know. But I kind of find it hard to believe that, for underground facilities, and we'll get more into that later, that that work isn't going to continue with Montreal Sandbox 1 after this point, because there's a lot more work to be done. And we'll talk about that when we get into the scanner anomaly.
The rest of the work off to EU Sandbox 2.
It might be, yeah, because some of they do share a lot of things. But so yeah, like the achievement service deliverable was updated. And usually these things, you'll see it says end date has moved earlier. So the end date for the currently scheduled work or sprint. So sometimes it just, means that they added more people to that sprint and they think they're going to get it done sooner. But most likely it means that the devs that were working on it after a certain point were reallocated. So they shortened the sprint and they moved them on to something else.
Oh my, that thing was like lobbed off.
What's that? Yeah.
The achievement service. It was supposed to end at 02/12/23. Whatever work was scheduled to start has been killed.
Yep.
That work never started. Because if you look at the progress tracker, now the bar only goes to October 2021.
Yeah, so you can now click on it and you can see that they originally had decided, they had work that they wanted to schedule out to here, but they
a new sprint like you said earlier, the progress tracker doesn't show gaps really well. So it would have shown a solid bar, but I imagine it was a gap in between the work that had been done and the work that this had scheduled that has been evaporated into infinite.
There was going to be a sprint in here by the game. Yeah, it's the game services team. We don't know what the details of that sprint. Let's see, where was it? We don't know what the details of that sprint were. We just know that it's gone. And it may have just been a few weeks.
And it's gone.
But yeah, and it's gone. Yeah. So we don't know. Yeah, I wish that it had that information. I can't remember. Yeah, because it's not. They don't show what the the details of the sprint
X1.
were...
Wait, the X1's gone? Hold on.
What?
The X1 better not be gone.
Aerodynamic control services, which I'm super excited for.
The X1's still there.
So
It's still there.
Yeah. But so you can see the end date was the second week of February, but now the end date is 3 months later. But they only added 20 days of work for the vehicle feature team. So they were going to have 20 more days of work leading up to this date. So there was going to be a big gap between the end of this date and when this starts. And so, but they can't represent that gap. So if we open it up, so it was supposed to stop here. Now it's stopping here, but they added 20 days of work. So there's a new sprint that essentially starts right here and goes to here for the vehicle feature team. But it shows a solid bar. And the progress tracker says 39 weeks of work, but it's not 39 weeks of work. And even though it shows a full-time bar, it doesn't have the lines in here. It just means that when they were working on this, they were working on it full-time. But they, weren't working on this continuously from here to here, because they added 20 days here in a 3-month period, which is a lot more than 20 days.
I wonder what they are working on for the roadmap, because Jake has said he has a laundry list of things he'd like to add, but showing gaps in work is kind of a big one.
Oh yeah.
And all they would really need to show, either the head tile that stays on the left side, or just a little check mark to say it was released or not released. So basically, tile
showing gaps in work, and then also having it, when you show the gaps in work, having that recalculate the amount of weeks that something's worked on. Because I can't tell how many times, and streamers, content creators are super guilty of this. We're like, oh my gosh, they've been working on this for 107 weeks. No.
Oh, yeah. I've been guilty of that. I don't think of that all the time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we didn't, up until a year ago, and some change, I didn't know, I've only been using...
Even a week ago, I've said stuff like that.
But yeah, and without going back to these reports and digging through, you wouldn't be able to find out which ones had gaps and which ones were solid. They've been working on this the entire time. So it's really just from week to week.
Yeah, that's why the other report, the scheduled deliverable report on the ShinyTracker is so gosh darn good.
Yeah. Because
you can actually open them up and say, not that button, don't do that. You can actually open them up and see the gaps.
Yep.
But on the progress tracker, it'd be really nice is if once a tile is done, they just add a green check mark or turn the tile green or whatever. And if it's not, you can just assume there's going to be more work added. So if it's not complete, it leaves the door open for more. That can be in the caveat page. Hey, if it's not green, it means it has potential to get more work done later. It's not done.
Yeah, more colors. We need more colors to simplify things.
Green, orange, red,
color
yellow.
coding.
Yeah, well, the whole thing. Yeah. But that lets them do the hey, it hasn't been worked on for 6 months, but we still have stuff we need to get done on it. Just that finish up stuff is waiting for engineers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be a thing.
So this one's another good example of that. AI vehicle perception. End date was 12/15 and is now 2/12, which was last month. But this is an upstream. No, this is a downstream team. But they added 42 days of work. Well, because of the vacation, the winter break for them, they basically were working on this right up to their break, and then continued to work on it all the way out to here. There wouldn't have been a break in that sprint from the sprint that they were already on. They just picked up where they left off. But again, prior to that, we don't know. Yeah. C8R Pisces, we know what that is. Bounty Hunter V2. Our old friend.
That's the tree Pisces, you mean?
Yeah. Yes. This is my shit.
You need to get them to get you a yellow and drab green skin for that.
Yes. Yeah. I need or I want an olive drab skin, and I think it's like some sort of Geneva Convention thing or whatever. Like it's a protected symbol, but the red cross for medevac, I just
Yeah, you're
want
not
it
allowed to put
to
that
be
in
Eau de
games.
Green. Yeah, you can't put it in games, and it drives me nuts because like I want a skin for my SAR medical rescue ship that makes it look like my Blackhawk. You know, that's all I
I
want.
don't remember what game, but one game got in some serious trouble for putting in protected medical symbols.
Yep.
It it was a whole thing. Like they were not at the it was the UN, whoever oversees that was just
Yikes.
lots of troubles.
Yeah, Ghost 1800 says so many games eventually had to remove the red cross, and I I don't. There's got to be a reasoning for it. I just don't know what it is, and I can't think of it. And it's like, what? Why would you
I
not want that to
imagine
be in games and stuff? You know, it's in
well,
movies.
I imagine there's
So
the like product placement is one thing where you would no press is bad press, but with protected symbols, it's either everyone or no one. I would imagine this is like UN level kind of politics here, so I imagine it's just way too much red tape,
yeah,
and so they just persecute everyone.
Bounty Hunter V. Yeah, no, it makes sense. It sucks. It's my immersion.
Yeah, that's why sci-fi games have such a good like stage, because like, oh yeah, we got rid of the Red Cross organization decades ago, centuries ago. We have this new symbol.
So Bounty Hunter V2, we've been keeping an eye on that, watching on that. The end date was extended a little bit less than a month. EU Landing Zone 2 added 20 days of work. Narrative added 27 days of work. Not heavy loads on those. They're basically like part-time sprints. And so with the way that Bounty Hunter V2, the sprint itself is looking, to me, it almost looks like they are slow boating on Bounty Hunter V2, the feature, until the back-end tech that supports it is done, aka Quantum and the various services of Quantum, which have been, they do have resources working on Quantum and the different services that are part of it. You can see those on the updates to the ShinyTracker. We do know that they're working on them. But PES and the work on PES really pushed development on Quantum and everything back by a good 6 months to a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we know they picked up work on those things
sprint,
in the fall. But
if you look at the tile for Bounty Hunter V2, it does look like it could have a release sometime soon, because SST has been working on it for a while, and they had a full-time sprint. So either they didn't finish all the work they needed to do, and it's just waiting for them to get back to it.
So they probably did a lot of their work on this end of it, but they still have to work on this. Doesn't include the services for Quantum that feed into the Bounty Hunter V2 feature. The AI services, they have their own.
It labels it. It labels it in there. This
will rely on the various new backend tech, but those things have their own individual deliverables.
NPC scheduler is listed there, and also the security service. Virtual AI is what we talked about. It's in. Actually, virtual AI also has its own.
Yeah.
Security service doesn't have its own. Hold on. I thought security service was its own tile. Security network is its own tile.
Yeah.
V1's done. V2 goes out till September.
Yeah, the V2 one just got updated within the sometime this year in the roadmap updates.
Virtual NPC goes out to August. So we could see a 4.0 Bounty Hunter V2. I could see that.
Ghost 1800. Security service, they need to get on those 40 plus Ninetales camping out at a single outpost. Yeah, no joke. They where are they getting all those people? Why is no one tracking them? Yeah. Pardon me.
I could see it. What I honestly think, though, is that we're not going to see a significant push towards quantum supremacy until post server meshing dynamic v2. They're going to get that hammered in, and then they're going to say, okay, now server meshing's done. We have all of these devs to implement the strongest economy any game has ever had.
I don't know. I think we're... See, that the only thing is that's a different team. Systemic services and tools is different than network. And yeah, they do... SST did work on PES and stuff.
Okay,
but
so
yeah.
their SSTs work on server meshing dynamic v2. Is that better?
I don't think that... Let's see.
SST definitely has work for for server meshing because they have to make their services work with server meshing.
Oh yeah, they have to have their their own work. But the only thing is, I think that they're going to want to get quantum and the AI stuff working in advance of server meshing, so that way when server meshing starts, when we get it, even if it's the first static aspect of it.
Where is SST?
That when we are able to have more NPCs, that the NPCs do the thing, and because they don't want Pyro to just be another system like Stanton. They want Pyro to be a system along with Stanton, with a functioning economy, with missions that aren't just the same ones we've always had. So I think that's
engineers.
Yeah. Yeah, let's keep going with this.
4 engineers.
Building interiors. Obviously, that sprint extended for another 3 months, another quarter. Interestingly enough, though, the Montreal sandbox added 73 days of work for that sprint, and narrative also added 27 days of work. But then EU sandbox freed up 14 days. So Montreal is doing the bulk of the work on building interiors at this point.
I want them to announce furniture stores.
Yeah.
The second I see the Galactopedia update with furniture stores, I'm going to be making a video. I can't wait.
It's good that they're adding narrative to this, though, because narrative is the ones that they're going to be fleshing out the facilities as what their role is, the missions that occur there, what people there are, instead of it just being a hollow structure, the actual
also
flavor
the smaller
to it.
Details.
Yeah.
Like the furniture and who made it, the bar, the drinks at the bar, the staircase, the lighting, who made the lighting.
Yeah, making them fit.
Yeah, having the names for everything, every company that manufactures any item in the game, that's narrative's job. And I love that. I talk about a lot the original concept images for shops. They have companies in the game that build different types of furniture, whether that be base, bottom of the barrel IKEA furniture or high end super luxury furniture. They have companies for that, and I imagine those companies have gotten more fleshed out in the background while we don't need them. So they're going to be coming onto the Galactopedia when they start going, oh yeah, this piano, that's actually by this musical instrument manufacturer. It's going to be so cool. Actually, do we have one? Do we have who made the piano on... Yes, we do have who made the piano, because the luxury furniture designer that helped with the Constellation Phoenix helped with that. So yeah, we already have at least one furniture manufacturer in the game.
Mm-hmm. You had said that you were, as far as the Delta Report or ShinyTracker in general, you had stuff that you noticed about Squadron? We're at the chapter portions. So was that in the chapter portions or?
So in chapter 1, it doesn't say time was added. The vehicle feature team was assigned. The animation team was assigned. And Squadron 42 feature was assigned. There is now 18 teams. Previously, it was not. It was either 16 or 15. It was not 18 teams. There are more teams on Chapter 1 now. And
they
I
didn't-
had hype.
They didn't change the sprints on existing teams. They assigned, well, except for level
More
design,
teams.
they assigned
Yeah.
more teams. Interesting.
And as I hypothesized last week or the week before, is that each of these chapters is a mission.
Mhm.
So, and if we go back and I should actually do a spectrum anomaly on this. If you go back to Chris talking about what a mission in Squadron means, it's not a level you play through like a crisis level where it's, start here, end here, objective complete. It's this giant sandbox with your vague objective to, like, go figure out what's wrong. And even the vertical slice, we saw their job was to go from point A to point B to point C and then report back. Well, they went point A, point B, and let's go rescue this other person. And in doing so, or let's go talk to this other person. In doing so, had to go rescue them, found some slavers, and got some more data on things. Talked to a salvager, and the mission would still be in effect until they finished their objective and did the transition downtime that all missions that Chris ever builds is going to have. You have that downtime transition where you're walking around. In this case, you're the Stanton, the Idris that you play in. So between mission 1 and 2, you probably are not moving out of the Archon, this Archon Station Odin area, which means they don't need to build the Archon Station Odin area again. So they don't need level design, and they don't need as much vehicle work, and they don't need as many characters or faces or animation. So for Chapter 2 or Mission 2, there's a lot less work needed. That's my tinfoil hat here. Why Chapter 1 has 18 teams of 130 weeks. Some weeks are gap weeks. We know this now. And then Chapter 2 is 6 teams with 76 weeks. It looks like either Chapter 2 is nowhere near complete, which that doesn't make any sense. They're polishing the game right now. So that is my hypothesis. My grand scheme is that these chapters are mission chapters, and the reason that some have so little work and some have a ton of work is because some of them are used the exact same thing as their previous chapter.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting that we have the vehicle feature team being assigned to these to a bunch of these chapters. That they're assigned now. They weren't apparently assigned before, and assigned.
Yeah, and their work
goes
back all to October September 2022.
Yep, and given that they're assigned, and like vehicle feature and Squadron 42 feature are assigned to a lot of these sprints that weren't assigned to before, and it's engineering devs. To me, that points at, hey, this is a new feature that is finally complete, and the engineering devs are implementing it into that chapter.
It's engineering.
But
I'm kind of serious though. Engineering is basically done. Not basically done. It's far along. Let's not call the glass 3/4 full.
Engineering gameplay is not done. The resource network system is well along, and a lot of people confuse the engineering gameplay with the resource network or resource management system. The resource network and resource management system is sort of like a back-end system. It's how everything functions under the hood. Engineering gameplay is how the player interacts with that function. When it comes to engineering for ships and stations and stuff like that, but resource management isn't just the coolant and the power plant. It's it's every recipe system for consumption of resources in order to produce something. So it ties into
renaming the resource system or resource management into engineering gameplay.
I don't think it. They said that the gameplay is engineering gameplay, but resource management.
But there's no engineering gameplay on here.
Yeah,
They said they were renaming something engineering gameplay.
I don't think we're going to see engineering gameplay pop up, on as a deliverable on the progress tracker, or if we do, it won't be up there yet, because this is really them still building the system in order to make it function with the ships and locations in the verse, the under the hood system.
Mm-hmm.
Resource management. This system will handle resources for stations, settlements, cities, and all other locations. It will also unlock engineering station gameplay for ships, letting players manage CPU, power, CPU, fuel, shields, coolant, etc. So, resource management is a system that handles resources for locations and vehicles. The engineering gameplay is what will allow us to interact with the engineering aspect of it, but it's not just engineering. When they say resources, it could be, resources means you put in these resources and this production node makes this thing and it pops out of a freight elevator and now you have to deliver it somewhere. That's how that works. So continuing on. But yeah, a lot of things getting assigned to the chapter work for Squadron 42. And that makes a lot of sense, especially in particular, the vehicle feature team getting assigned. We don't know what they're integrating, but they seem to be integrating something into a lot of the chapter work. Now that a certain something is done or done enough that it can be integrated. So, yeah, that's a good observation. Because otherwise, for a lot of these things, I just skip through it because so much of it is this team added this many days of work. This team added this many days of work. Very few. Having new teams assigned to a chapter to do things is not a regular occurrence at all, especially with engineering devs from vehicle feature teams or engineering devs from the Squadron 42 feature teams. Adding in stuff. Character creator and character work. Yep, they're working on that.
All right, so it said in feature gameplay last month report. So the team continued work on the resource network, which is now known as engineering gameplay. Is what they said exactly.
Yeah.
The resource network is now known as engineering gameplay.
But it's not all engineering gameplay.
That's why I was so confused when they said it. That's what they said. I'm just telling you what they said.
I know what you're talking about. I'm just saying it isn't just engineering gameplay though. And
I think this is a marketing. I think this is a marketing that
it's in order for players to understand. Okay, what does this mean for me? Because
this is the gamer doesn't read.
When they did the ISC recently on it, that they made it very clear in the beginning how this impacts every location, and it isn't just players interacting with the system. This is how the system can, locations produce, consume and produce things, and locations consume and produce things based off of quantum in order for you to have production of a resource that you take somewhere else to build something else, or it could be an end game, an end product. But that's the part that so many people are confused about, because they really just think about it in terms of ships, and it's like, no, this is not just ships. This is everything.
And now that's going to be even more obscure because they're calling it engineering gameplay. Like it's
and you're not going to be using an engineering station to manage the power and coolant of a space station. It's not just talking about that. It's talking about how this or a city.
Yeah,
it's talking about how when you get to a city with a load of this, how it disappears into the ether and goes into the equation, so that way the production nodes on our core can make power plants.
Yep.
Yeah. And then they pop back out and you take them somewhere or buy them.
It's the material side of quantum.
Yeah. but it's the
But also,
it's
it's
the,
your ship.
yeah, the under the hood aspect of it is the material cipher quantum, but it's also it's a recipe system, and they're just using the same code for that recipe system for you to but putting different labels on things in terms of a ship, and the output is thrust, from a thruster versus the output being a power plant, from a production node. Derelict spaceships, points of interest. Narrative added 27 days of work.
Woot.
Yeah. So hopefully with PES, and hopefully that will the way I understand PES is that it will, because things can stream in and out and be stored and have their state streamed in and out more.
Well, can the servers even start right
Yeah.
now?
Well, they're supposed to once they get it going. But
Yeah, apparently I just looked at the
they should be able to have more POIs and locations and stuff,
yeah.
in even in Stanton.
Yeah, the platform up thing, whatever it's called, the platform status, it's now downgraded to a partial outage. So it is getting better. It is getting better. 318 should be stable very soon.
Yeah.
By very soon, I mean within, the next 2 weeks.
Before
also,
the heat
fun
death of the
note-
universe.
Yeah, but fun note on that extension of time, that is still in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just making us known of work that Narrative did on some potentially upcoming, potentially already out Dalek points of interest.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see, more of them and more missions or things to. I mean, that could be Narrative just putting in like little things for you to find. They talked about
Did
like
they
little
say they were
tablets
putting
or
stuff in? Yeah, tablets and lore things to find.
mm-hmm.
Where did they say they
little
were?
kind of interactables and such.
Where did they say they were adding those? Did they talk about?
It
Like,
was in
the
what did then
future?
they had a Narrative ISC or not ISC SCL recently.
Yeah,
That's so
did
hard to
that
keep
sound like
track
that
of it
was?
all.
Did that sound like that was recent or like soon, or was that like 319, 320, 40 kind of territory?
I don't know.
Okay.
Hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon. Like they freed up a lot of time for Narrative. Narrative has a lot of time now.
Yeah. Distortion propagation vehicle feature team freed up 6 days of work, so they're doing less work on it. They shortened a sprint. Drake Corsair, that's already
out.
Why these things are just now showing up, I don't know, but apparently, this team got done with certain things, or the vehicle feature team was supposed to work on something for the Drake Cutter, Drake Corsair, etc.
Both of them freed up the same amount.
Yeah, but they didn't. To me that signals that it's a feature that wasn't released, or isn't ready, and so they didn't incorporate it yet. Maybe engineering gameplay.
Lockers.
Yeah, or lockers too. Mm-hmm.
Let's check in on that one. Just to, I am all over the place. I'm so sorry, Tree. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Lockers
Dynamic
is one
events.
of the big ones that I keep track of. Yeah, Lockers hasn't gotten work.
Well, and they talked
November.
about that recently, where wasn't it a monthly report where they were talking about how, or no, I think it was in an ISC or something, where they mentioned how that they're working on it, so your locker has an outfit and you just click a button and it puts on
it's the loadout system.
Yeah, a loadout system.
Yeah, they did say they were working on it, but there's no inventory stuff being worked on right now.
Yeah, well, and that could be stuff that in the next roadmap update, where they update deliverables and sprints to reflect some of that, because they're not done yet.
Yeah, that's true. They're not done, but also it also could be it's farther down the road.
Mm-hmm. Dynamic events, narrative team adding work to dynamic events and the Lorville cityscape. Narrative's is oftentimes for some things it's upstream, but oftentimes it's a downstream team where they go in and
added to
added 28 days of work, added 55 days of work. Yeah.
because that's also back in the beginning of February.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, like the only one working on it now is Mission Feature Team. Strange.
Yeah.
Strange.
Fire
Fire hazard.
hazard. So they just added a month of work from AI Tech in the feature team. And they had stopped, last sprint ended at the end of last August. And so they just did a whole month of work on it this last month in February. So,
What is the requirements for fire? I know they've been working on a lot of fire stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's weapon misfire, not necessarily fire. So fire extinguisher and fire hazard are both tentatively complete, I'll call them.
Mm-hmm.
What's the incendiary? No, come on, type correctly. Incendiary ammunition is also tentatively complete. No, it's not. It's not worked on yet. Happens in June. I wonder if the resource system is required for fire.
Could be. Or they are, because they're working so much on it, they have to update the fire system as they're doing that, because resource management includes life support, oxygen, or the air and
where
everything.
fuel is and where it's going, and power system, and
hey, we've gotten this working, so now we need to update fire, so that way when we have the ability to take the atmosphere out of a room, we have to update the fire to make it so that way it stops the fire, etc.
The relay system, that is resource network.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Just trying to
the
get
relays
all
are part of the
all the
resource
clips in my
network.
head to mesh together. That's a really big feature.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah. That's why that ISC about it. They were not subtle about how important this is, and how big of a feature it is, and how it touches. Was it Johnny Josivius, or what's the name of the dev who was at the beginning? He's like, it literally touches everything.
It was one of the much higher ups. Yeah. Like has an entire pillar of the like much of the game, like gameplay pillar team or whatever.
Yeah. He has an interesting accent. That's how I always remember him.
Yeah. The resource system has kind of grown into like, oh, this is how you'll do engineering in your ship, to this is kind of as big as 4.0 here.
Yeah.
Like this is the resource system is now kind of as important as server meshing itself, because whether it's a city, an outpost's lights, or your ship's
fuel, it's not a backend system, but it is a integral under the hood system of everything in the game.
It's a middleware.
Yeah.
It's literally how most people will interact most of the time with the game.
Mm-hmm.
So
freight elevators. Interesting that they just added 3 weeks of work to that for EU Landing Zone 2.
I imagine that was just the PAR extension.
Yeah. But that was all the work that was added. So they were assigned. So freight elevators, EU Landing Zone 2. So this sprint was added here. But
here's my theory.
There isn't any additional work scheduled on freight elevators right now. I imagine there will be, but
either 1, it's in 319 and it's done, or 2, because it can't be in 319, it was deprioritized, and they'll get back to it when they either are starting to make 320 or gearing up for 4.0.
I think it's going to be a part of 319. Because they talked about how important they are, and the next iteration of the cargo factor, but maybe it'll be a 320 thing. But EU Landing Zone 2, to me, that just suggests that they are adding in. They added in these new freight elevators. They work.
Landing zones,
They work. They function now. Here's the new freight elevators. We're putting them where they need to be, and now we're just waiting for everything else that interacts with them to be added, for the next iteration of the cargo factor.
I wonder if we get load timers with this. I wonder if they're even gonna do load timers now.
I don't know. Who knows?
Because
It
like
feels like load
free-to-loaders-
timers would be a stopgap until we have NPCs doing stuff, and it's like, how long would we really
I mean,
need that
they
stopgap
always were going
for?
to be.
Yeah.
They always were going to be. But being how we have everything except for an NPC pick. Well, no, we have NPCs able to pick up boxes because they can do carts now.
hmm
We have literally everything except the behavior for the NPC to put box from elevator into random ship.
Yeah.
And that is such a small thing. Even though it's a really big job to do that, that's a lot of dynamic pathfinding and directional stuff. Yes, it's a big
I
task.
think the
But
biggest
it's a single
indicator will be
task.
the monthly reports, for March and April.
Yeah.
Leading up to it, of whether that will be a thing, because they've been talking about making hand trolleys work better and improving the way NPCs are able to use them. And so if hand trolleys and other carts or usables are no longer the nuclear, weapons that they once were, and NPCs can move them around and everything, then maybe they will skip the timers just because we don't, maybe we won't have a 2-year gap in between,
Or maybe they want to stop people trying or make haulers feel that absolute pain of trying to completely full whole C, or not whole C, a C C2 or Caterpillar by hand.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is going to be pain, and you're going to want crew.
Yeah.
I'm in the no timers now. I'm in the no timers camp.
I'm fine
make
with no
me have
timers.
to hire friends.
I want the immersion, but at the same time, if they do that, of course they have to make it so that way cargo is profitable, because the way it stands right now, if you have to sit there and wait on NPCs to unload your ship, okay, well, you sit and wait and you come back and you go do something else. But yeah.
I mean, yeah, it would turn 100K half an hour into 100K 2 hours. It'd be rough.
Yeah. This one's interesting. Jump points. End date has moved earlier. Time allocation removal or priority up likely. I think this is time allocation removal, because it was moved up from June 5th to March 5th, and the vehicle feature team freed up 89 days of work. So it went
vehicle
from
feature. That's interesting team to get less work.
Yeah. And on jump points. So
I'm really upset that they did not do the server meshing burn down video part 2 the week after they put out part 1.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to get sprinkled in over like an entire quarter or more.
I don't like that because the amount of meltdown that the community did after the first one. Like, we need the answers that were in the second episode.
Yeah.
That are in the second episode.
The context is important, and the gap in between episodes really mitigates a lot of that context.
And we're not getting one this year or this week either. What are we getting this week? It's oh god, there's so many things. So many tiles are all the same. What's this week? Modular mission system this week.
Yeah.
It's a normal ISC.
So here's an interesting connection. Jump points. Vehicle feature team freed up 89 days of work. Instead of 7 engineering devs, it's now 5 engineering devs with 38 tasks. So it's a light load. So they were only working on it like part-time anyway, apparently. But now, map and radar system rework. Vehicle feature team was assigned, revealing 62 days of work, 2 engineering devs with 9 tasks.
They were moved.
So some engineers were reallocated from jump point work to the map and radar system rework. Higher priority.
Okay. I'm gonna take your tinfoil hat theory and come with a new tinfoil hat theory on top of yours. that the reason it was less priority is because it's still a little ways out, almost a
Mhm.
year, and the map system could come sooner than
Sooner.
that.
Yep.
Which means, and I've not been on the boat with everyone else about the 0.5 server meshing. I don't want them to do a 0.5 server meshing. Just
Oh yeah.
hold it
No.
till you
I
have
think
version 1.
I think that's part of the context that is missing from that episode 2 thing that we were
Like,
talking
are they
about.
actually planning a 0.5, or is it just? And the way they were explaining was weird. Like all the Star Citizen YouTubers were explaining it really weird that they put in server meshing, but only sort of. But if you have sort of, why not just do the whole thing?
Yeah.
Why not use this sort of server meshing in addition to the server meshing, being that the jump point is a whole step instead of a half step? It
I don't
doesn't.
know.
Nothing
Doesn't
made any
make-
sense with them trying to explain it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's part of the issue with having it broken up into multiple episodes and not having them be sequential. And yeah, it left a lot of things unanswered and open and up to rampant speculation by people who have not been following
I mean,
this
they
all that
rampant
closely.
speculated on a single napkin.
Yeah.
Like, nothing else was talked about in the entire episode but that napkin.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrible. But yes, maps!
Yeah. MFD
when did that go
rework,
out
though. Vehicle feature, it just only a couple days, but they
Oh, everything ends at the... And yeah, that's not
Yeah.
done. That can't be done.
they didn't change the end date, but they added a bunch of work. So it was already planned and everything. So let's see, what team was working on it? It was
Who got
yeah,
added?
the UI teams were already working on it.
Yeah.
Or Squadron 42 UI and the graphics team, and then the UI tech team. And then they added the Squadron 42 feature and vehicle feature teams in these sprints alongside them. So basically,
Very interesting.
to me, along with the way that they've been describing in the monthly reports, the map and radar system is functioning and it's built, and now they are adding it to the vehicles, the ships that use it, and integrating it into that. Northland Trooper says, "Be curious with the medical portion in ships will be affected with engineering." Yeah, especially because like
It will have the medicine will have containers now.
Yeah, the medicine will have containers, but you'll also have to make sure like you're gonna have to have power to your med bed, or
Also, I
and
would
who knows what
imagine that
else.
they would put in hydration and saturation things,
Yep.
because when you sit in a bed currently, it refills your hydration and saturation.
Yeah.
So those will also become tanks you need to fill up. And with places you can respawn at, you will need to keep your whatever the human glue is.
Human glue.
The 3 printer material for human stuff. That's gonna
Mhm.
be a tank you need to refill. Basically, there's gonna be a lot of resource management for medics, for medics to delegate to nurses and whatever other lackey medical people there are. I don't know what lackey medical people are called.
Yeah, techs.
Oh, okay, techs.
Mm-hmm. Mobiglass rework, end date extended to essentially today. With
hold on, why did we skip the whole C?
Oh, it just says vehicle feature team freed up 27 days of work. So
I know, that's fine. That's all you had to say. Continue.
Mm-hmm. So the vehicle feature team got taken off of it. So the sprint didn't change. The vehicle feature team was working on it out here, and they removed that sprint. We don't know why or what that sprint entailed. So miscellaneous support is an interesting sprint deliverable because a lot of things get popped out of miscellaneous support.
Oh my god, there are 40 teams.
What? Yeah.
There are 40 teams in miscellaneous support.
Well, it's a catch-all thing. Yeah, that like, so when the Mustang Beta that has the cargo that goes up and down, The Mustang Beta.
No, I think that's
getting
the alpha.
its
The
or
beta is the one with the
alpha.
bed.
Yeah, the one with the cargo. That getting its own cargo thing, that was done as part of miscellaneous support. It's
So
things like that get taken care of by miscellaneous support. So, yeah.
I think okay. So somewhere in whatever I'm gonna just name this tiny updates, like the timeline update for the Ursa links and G2 G12 is gonna have to be called like miscellaneous something.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a little catch-all for literally anything
Yeah.
that doesn't really matter. That is 40 teams though.
Yeah, it's miscellaneous support as well as like the bug fixing sprint. Like people forget bug fixing and tech debt. Um, the work on the freelancer that was mentioned in the monthly report to support components. I guarantee you that is either falls into tech debt or miscellaneous support. There won't be a
Oh, probably
deliverable for it.
miscellaneous.
Yeah,
I would
it's one or
imagine
the
that's
other.
miscellaneous.
Yeah, I asked Jake about that, and I forgot because he told me another very recent example that fell under that. And he's like, oh yeah, that that work was done as part of miscellaneous support. And I'm like, holy shit, it makes sense. But so many of the little things where they're just little surprise features and additions to the game that fly under the radar they fall under miscellaneous support, and so you can't discount that work. It's important. Miscellaneous support and bug fixing and tech debt. Because tech debt is, hey, we've done this and we've brought integrated this feature, and now we're going back and updating it for other ships or other parts of the game.
Yep.
New missions, Orison. Sweet, more missions. Whoop-de-doo. New player experience. I don't know. I don't have anything on that. They're just adding more missions. Yeah, we already knew about these.
New mission Orison is there's nothing to it's like little snippets of Siege and Orison, except they don't take over the platforms. That's the only mission there.
The additional stuff on the platforms, reusing them.
Yeah, it's just a bunker mission.
Yep.
That's all it is. It's fun, but that's all it is.
Yeah. New player experience, thank God.
That's just narrative working on it now.
Yeah. They added a little bit more work from these other teams, but they just barely extended that out. And the new player experience, is gonna be coming soon, and hopefully
319.
Yeah, 319. Duh. So it'll be interesting to see. Well, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, especially like doing a 0 to hero. Making a new character.
Yeah, I think 320. I'm gonna be living in from ArtCorp. So for 318 and 19, it's gonna be Orison because the last few patches has been Babbage. So 320 or 4 port, whatever the next thing after 319 is ArtCorp gonna be living there.
Yep.
Nice.
So Origin X1, they removed the vehicle feature team, just like they did for the whole scene.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know why the vehicle feature team was on the Origin X1. It's just a hover bike. What did you need the vehicle feature team for? The question is, without that vehicle feature team, that's the only thing I can think of, is that they're removing the vehicle feature team sprints from these different vehicles because they did it for the Cutter, the Corsair, they did it for the Hull C. They're doing it for the X1, and so we're not implementing resource network gameplay engineering whatever onto these vehicles just yet. And then that work to bring them back in will get put into miscellaneous.
Yep.
Persistent hangars end date extended from late May to early September. So EU Landing Zone 2 is assigned adding 55 days of work, one art dev. So wonder what they're doing with the hangars that's going to make them look different. That they're having an art dev doing this stuff.
The ability to have their own hangar, their own persistent hangar, This will bring changes to the cargo gameplay loop by allowing players to pack their cargo grids manually.
Mm-hmm.
So this is in like direct cooperation with the elevators.
Yeah.
But the verbiage that I really latch onto is their own persistent hangar.
Yeah.
Players' own hangar.
Store all sorts of things.
But do we get the hangars back? They just put in 318. They just put all the hangar flare in the game.
Yep.
So are they working on? Is persistent hangars the hangars we were using? Not the hangars
Yeah.
like the models that we used.
Updated, but is it going to have that similar functionality for? Yeah.
Can we
It
put
would
stuff
make sense.
places?
Yeah. I've
Let
got
me put
so
my
many
hollow table back on the
posters
floor.
and a fish tank and God knows what else.
I don't think I ever had a fish tank. Do I have a fish tank? I don't think I have the fish tank. I have
and
the
server
ICC
meshing.
probe.
Oh yeah. The vehicle feature team freed up 61 days of work from PES and server meshing. They didn't stop doing their work. They just removed some of the devs that were assigned to that sprint. So it was 5, now
Vehicle
it's
feature
3.
team just moved all over the place this update.
Yeah, they
Jeez.
got a lot. Their schedule was changed dramatically. There is so much going on.
Yeah, and then Player
with the
Experience
real
Tier 2
Yep.
got a vehicle feature team dev added.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like I would love to actually go through here and do all the math of where they left and who went where.
Yeah. The tracking people, following them around is quite the challenge. And it's really, a lot of it's just guesswork. Pyro space stations, yep, still working on it. Pushed out, but the thing is, this is 3 design devs, with 6-7 tasks, 18% load, art devs, 3% load, narrative. These are part-time sprints. They're polishing. This is polish work. This isn't, production. This is, hey, you're just polishing these last few things, getting it ready, because otherwise it'd be a lot higher load.
Ooh, you're gonna like the last one.
Interactables team assigned, revealing 6 days of work, with Pyro System Planet and mission set up. So more.
That's what they were talking. That's what they were talking about with the narrative thing. That's what they were talking. They wanted to add narrative stuff to Pyro specifically. That's what they were talking about.
Yep.
I knew it was something specific. There's gonna be
and
lore stuff to find, tablets and things in Pyro.
Yep. Yeah, story elements.
Yeah.
Quantum travel experience extended only a few days, but that was with adding a month of work from the vehicle feature team. 3 engineering devs. So the quantum travel experience became much higher priority than a lot of other things because they added 3 engineers that they took from somewhere else to get this stuff done, to get that updated.
It feels like a lot of the stuff is not very forward-looking.
Mm-hmm.
After Stasis V2 hasn't started work, and that goes out till June. Derelict Settlements goes out till June.
Yeah.
Control Services is only May. Santucky Eye is only June.
There's still a lot
September.
more stuff to get added.
Yeah.
For the scheduling.
I think they're doing it chronologically.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of this stuff is not July, September stuff, and that's the stuff that we should be getting for at least the upstream teams, right?
Yeah. I think it's just because there's so much to add in there, that Jake is having to add it in over time, and he's like, okay, I'll add these teams updates, in this 2-week period and these ones in the next 2-week period, but he got a giant data dump, and, he's still just catching up on adding all of that. Resource management, vehicle feature team added more work, higher priority thing. But it wasn't extended. They just added sprints to it, or elongated the sprints that were already in there. Space mines, end date has been moved earlier, time allocation removal. Yeah, the vehicle feature team was removed from space mines, not a high priority thing. We're not going to see the Nautilus anytime soon. In order to work on more important things like resource management, like the quantum travel experience. Squadron 42 vehicle support, again, another one of those catch-all things. This is just all the polish work, update work, tech debt, miscellaneous stuff for the various vehicles within Squadron 42 that are not the specifically named ones, like the Idris. And I imagine even the work on the Idris falls under this, but vehicle feature team added 97 days of work with a whole bunch of engineering, and design devs. I imagine this is probably implementing, resource network stuff into various squadron ships.
Yeah, even some devs got done because it used to be 9 engineers, designers. Now it's 7 engineers and 1 designer. So those numbers that left are people who got done with their work and is now moving on to something else.
Mm-hmm. Third-person camera V2, basically removed.
I feel like that's been in there since forever.
Yeah. UGF's end date extended from mid-April to end of July. EU Sandbox adding 13 days of work. Montreal Sandbox was assigned, revealing 63 days of work, 2 months. So that was the extension of that. And we're about to get more into the UGFs here. Vehicle tractor beams narrative was assigned. The sprint and deliverable itself hasn't changed, but narrative was assigned, revealing 9 days of work. So we'll have to continue to keep an eye on vehicle tractor beams. I'm still hoping for 319. I think it's probably going to be a 320, but I think if we get a 320, it will be in July.
I don't. That sprint seems awfully back heavy. And it's only a part-time on the EUPU, which means...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, EUPU gameplay feature team.
That's how, some sprints come in. They come in the last couple months of their sprint.
Yep.
And if narrative's already doing their last finishing up, I'd say I'd
really
I'd say it's a good chance.
Narrative is more descriptors and stuff for the manufacturers of the vehicle tractor beams, but then also I imagine the tractor beams probably have different sort of subcomponents or heads, kind of like mining, that do different things. This one has greater range but less strength. This one is able to lift bigger things, or negate more mass. SRV.
SRV, thank you.
Yeah, because we have MISC tractor beams and we have Grey Cat.
Oh, it's done.
Or is that the name of the other ones? Yeah, the other vehicle ones. Yeah. So that's it for the Delta report on the progress for the ShinyTracker. We don't really need to go into the scheduled deliverables, but this just shows all the deliverables that are currently being worked on by what teams, actively being worked on.
Yeah, so if you open up the more extra analysis, it's that area is a really good. It's right up at the top of it.
Yep.
It's a really good analysis for where time is.
Yeah.
For all of these teams
being allocated. But at the same time, remember, this is based off of the current progress tracker.
Yeah.
And it
all
doesn't
this site can do is current.
Yeah, it doesn't have others. there's still a lot of sprints left to be added, and deliverables to be updated with the Q1 update. And so, this is not exact. It's just based off of what's currently available, and not all the information is there.
Sorry, the weapon content team is full-time with 12 tasks scheduled, all of which are Squadron 42.
Yeah. There are approximately 350 devs out of about 512, or 68%. So there's a whole lot of people who are unassigned because of where we are with the update cycle for the roadmap. So
fun to happy fun times.
Yep. So if you have free time, I encourage you to take a look at these, because you can also open up these individual sprints and see what they actually look like. And each one of these dots is 2 days, right?
So each set of dots, it goes by 2. Each set of dots is 1 week.
Okay, yeah.
Because the roadmap updates in the middle of the week, The week is split up to pre-update and post-update.
Mm-hmm.
Or when pre-Wednesday, post-Wednesday.
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks? No, sorry, 2 weeks. Because it's 2 weeks between updates.
Mm-hmm.
My bad. It's 2 weeks. So yes, each dot technically is a week, but the dashes will always come in between the lines, not on a line.
There we go. The time slots you see on the RSI website are actually fragmented into many smaller sections, usually 2-week sprints. I do my best to combine relevant time spans by looking for overlaps, 4 days currently. Okay, yeah. All right, so that's it for the Roadmap Roundup for March 8th and the ShinyTracker reports going along with it. Now we're going to move into our scanner anomaly for the evening on underground facilities.
Woot.
So what I did is I made a bunch of notes like we always do. And I'm going to go through the notes that I made. But while I'm going through the notes regarding these 2 videos that we have on UGFs, I made a video that's just all the concept art from the that was posted in the subscriber vault. So all the concept art that you've seen in both these videos was posted in the subscriber vault. So if you haven't seen it all or you wanted to get access to it, I put it all in a video that's going to be playing in the background while I read through my notes before we get into a few other things. And then when this goes out to YouTube, the show notes will have not only a link to, the link in the show notes or the show notes link in the description of the video will not only show you everything for the Roadmap Roundup, but it'll also show you my personal notes, links to the 2 videos that we have about the UGFs. I didn't go over the one where they just talk about the various sprints and stuff and how it's all planned out. And then I also created a little Excel spreadsheet about where some UGFs are specifically mentioned in the Galactopedia as well as elsewhere in the lore, because this is why I got so excited about the UGS when they first mentioned them, because I generally do a lore equals gameplay episode for each Galactopedia update, and so I've been going through and reading through each article and each Galactopedia update since they've been doing it, but I have noticed over time how they've mentioned underground facilities in so many of these articles for so many of these locations and talking about them. And then all of a sudden they reveal that, oh, we're doing new cool giant UGFs using the procedural locations tool. And it was a mix of, oh my gosh, I love the lore. And they're mentioning all these things as well as, I'm a fool for tools. Nazeris and I are both fools for tools. We love the procedural locations tool, which we did an episode in, and that link will also be in the show notes. So everything you see here will be linked in the show notes if you want to peruse it. If you want to download the concept art, download the little video I made, look at the links for all of these Galactopedia articles and read them for yourself, as well as watch these 2 videos, one from CitizenCon this last year and the other one, the recent ISC from March 2nd. All that's in there. So let's go ahead and get started. And here we are. Here's the video. And so for the first video, which was from where they showed us the concepting process and what they're going through by Ian Leyland, who's one of the locations heads back in CitizenCon last October. Yeah. And I'm just going to let this play and then read through a couple of my notes regarding that video. So the OG UGFs were made for a CitizenCon years ago. And so when they made them for CitizenCon years ago, can I set this to repeat? Yeah, there we go. So when they made them for CitizenCon years ago, they didn't have enough time to take the facilities to where they wanted. They basically just made one facility, and that's all that we have. We've been playing in the same UGFs for years now without any variety and very little mission variability to them. But they always wanted to scale from small to medium and large underground facilities to accommodate about an hour's worth of gameplay. Because right now you can get through a UGF pretty quick. Even if you're looting everything in your loot goblin like me, you can get through them pretty dang quickly. Especially if you're just clearing them out. It's not really much of a mission. There's not a lot of gameplay. They want like a whole hour and some change of gameplay from these UGFs just based off of a specific mission set or a job type that you're going to be doing. And when they were going through the concept art and everything from the CitizenCon 2952, they talked about how the UGFs are broken up into 4 different zones. And it's important to remember, that they broke these different zones up not only for design purposes, but also for tech purposes. If you remember from the procedural locations tool video that we did, as well as our recent episode that Naz and I did, where we talked about how we go to 100 star systems, you may have seen the little video clip of how the procedural locations tool can basically procedurally make a space station with all the rooms that it needs in a layout that makes sense. Well, that's important not only for gameplay purposes and design purposes, but also for tech purposes, because by breaking up these rooms into groups within different zones and having traversal between them, whether it's through elevators or corridors and stuff, it allows these UGFs to not only be not just a singular entity zone, like we talked about with Nazeris talked about with the server meshing aspect of going our bit on going to 100 star systems, but to entity zones, so that way things can be broken up for server meshing and PES, in that you're not only your client but a server. Your client doesn't have to render the whole UGF. It only renders up a portion that you're in, and the server isn't. A server can be assigned to a small portion of UGF based off of demand. Breaking things down into smaller manageable chunks for server meshing. And so the first zone is the presence of the UGF on the landscape, the above ground elements, and we saw that with the above ground. The sort of almost Hurston looking monolithic structure, but also the infrastructure around it. So you have your big corporate wing building, but you have your landing pads, you've got openings for hangars where you can actually land your ships, as well as indications for the type of facility. So Ian Leyland talked about how, depending on what the facility's main function is or what they do there, will dictate what sort of things you see around the facility, whether they're storage tanks or container yards, power plant looking things, refinery looking structures, all that sort of stuff will be dictated by the type of facility, and that's essentially part of the procedural overlay system. And they want multiple entrance types. So not only are you going to have your landing pads, your hangar openings, but you also have ground level entrances for you to drive into or out of. Zone 2 is about the logistics for the player. So it's the first thing that you get into when you leave the sort of corporate external above ground part, and that's where all the logistics occurs. Where you really have a lot of cargo container and other sorting going between the hangars and the pads. And then that's where the lifts go to take them down further into the facility. And they talked about this as what they were showing us was the utilitarian art style, kind of like what we see on stations, and in the current UGFs. But they're going to expand it to other variants. So if you remember the overlay system from like that they showed with Rastar, how they can, hey, here's the structure, and then we can choose which overlay we want to put onto that structure and have multiples available based off what we're designing. Well, the procedural location tool will, based off of the preset of this is a sort of maybe like a server farm facility or some sort of research facility, you will dictate what art style the interiors of the different rooms have, as well as the overlays on top of that art style. What it looks like. Zone 3, going farther down, when you take that big, you either take the the big cargo lift or the pedestrian lifts down, is the what they call the bowels of the facility, where all the industrial aspects of the facility are going on, regardless of what it is, whether it's a production facility, like for the example was bearing. They just put bearing on everything, but you can have an underground facility that's a factory where they're building things, and the facility, when we get into some of the lore of this, they talk about this in a few of the lore pieces, where underground facilities exist not only just because you're mining underground, you need to mine these resources, and then the refinery is right there underground, but also you want to produce something on this planet, but the environment above is hostile. And so instead of building a dome or a big expensive structure that's going to be able to withstand the conditions, they build a smaller structure above and essentially a big structure below that is protected from the elements by the surface, the ground. Blezrad says, "Yeah, I'm looking forward to massive Microtech server farm UGFs." Oh yeah, I totally, whether it's they're just storing data or processing data, or it's research where you have supercomputers, because we've had multiple mentions in the verse of supercomputers being used to run simulations to help develop technology. Well, you could totally have that for any number of companies. Go ahead.
That's why Microtech settled on Microtech, because free cooling.
Yep. Yeah,
So
free
they're just
cooling.
so like the stuff you're gonna see at the top of the UGF for these server farms is giant ventilation ducts. Which
Yeah.
who's ever played a stealth game when you go in through the ventilation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you have your server farm below the surface because you don't want to build a big building above the surface for certain areas, but you want to be able to, have your server farm that's doing some sort of quantum computing research, blah blah blah, below ground. Well, you have your duct work that's essentially your coolant system running from below ground and below the facility up to the surface. The site, almost just like your cooler on your computer, running, your dang, oh gosh, essentially it's a radiator system. But yeah, that's an example of what you would see around the structure above that's tied into the structure below to make it believable. It's a really good example, actually. Yeah, they talked a lot about how there's going to be lots of traversal options, whether you're going down through corridors, on a vehicle, because they want to have these big corridors where you can drive through them. That's why they kept on showing the Drake mule in so much of the concept art, but also walking and crawling, walking, through the corridors, but crawling and sneaking around through small small passages. Yeah, avoid the fan blades. Don't what was that Mission Impossible where the guy rode up in the elevator and he got squished by spikes? Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, don't be that guy.
There are certain weapon types that will help with disabling fan blades, also hacking.
Yeah.
So UGFs are big and dense with gameplay.
Oh yeah, and that was one of the things that in the next video they mentioned very explicitly how they want every aspect of gameplay in Star Citizen to interact with UGFs and be available as part of the UGFs. And so, but yeah, they talked about lots of traversal options, options for puzzles, as well as when they say puzzles, I think they mean like how do you whether it's get from here to here, but also hacking, and utilizing different things, and then gameplay, FPS gameplay opportunities, not just combat, but just everything. They talked about how. Oh, go for it. Sorry.
I imagine that they're designing it in such a way that multiple players can be running different missions in the same UGF. running into each
and
other or
potentially not even running into each other because they can be so big.
Like let's say one guy is going down to the depths of with an FPS mission. Some guy's like doing his dailies, like going to mine, like hand mining, and then another guy's there just to pick up some cargo. So he's just like going into the front desk. Hey, I'm here to pick up these crates. Oh, sure, they'll be in this hangar. Here you go. Here's your pass. You walk in, you go get your crates and leave. You saw nothing about the two guys trying to do their job. And the guy like way down the depths trying to assassinate that one executive down in the basement.
When they as well as NPCs coming and going, but that's why the ones they showed us in the concept art were mediums, and they had multiple hangars as well as multiple pads. So you can land on the pads, and go into the facility from the pads, or unload your ship into the facility from the pads. But also you can land in hangars, and these are going to have freight elevators going from the from the exterior of the facility, but also from within the hangar for moving freight, moving cargo, but also moving people and such. The corridors that connect the larger rooms, like they have multiple room types. Pardon me, and some of them are big and some of them are small, but the bigger ones are connected not only by the big elevators going up and down, but also by large corridors going between them. And in order to make it so that way the draw distances aren't too long, the corridors have bulkheads between them. And that's also a very convenient way to separate room. Pardon me. God damn it.
And CIG doesn't do anything like slightly, so when the size increase or decrease when you see a small or a large is not going to be a couple meters or like maybe 100 meters bigger. It's going to be massive and probably somewhere around the UGS we have now for the smalls. Maybe a little bit bigger, but we're gonna have like the
exterior for version. The current ones would be like an extra small. But the below ground will be many times bigger than what we have, even for the
because they can make underground anything. But the little entrance will probably have like a hangar or two kind of thing. Like it's gonna be small. Like, there's not gonna be a lot of in or out traffic. It's gonna be like Riari set up a research facility or something. It's not gonna be like Riari's main research facility. And what they'll probably do, just for narrative purposes, is have a hub version and smaller satellite versions. So like Riari's base on Microtech, but then Riari has several outposts elsewhere in UGS around.
Really great way to create missions of bringing things from one smaller facility to a larger one, and vice versa. You bring the bulk of the supplies for their operations to the main hub, and then they get ferried out to the smaller ones. And these places are, things are produced here, and then you ferry them to the main facility where they get distributed out to the verse.
That even like helps with the gameplay flow. Like, let's say you're trying to do the UGF FPS missions. Well, you've been doing these little satellite smalls all the time. You can get those done, even the new ones, like, let's say half an hour, right? You go in, you do your job for half an hour, and it's sold, okay, you can just salt a medium now. That's go home, restock, get the good ship, and plan your assault.
Pick up your friends,
and then they say, okay, NPC mercenaries. You've done X amount of mediums. Now go do a large. Don't worry. There's an entire garage dedicated to tanks there. I hope you have friends. Good luck.
Yeah.
Like, it's the scaling will not be small between them.
Yeah. Well, and that's why like the corridors in between these large rooms have bulkheads that not only reduce the draw distances for performance on your client, on your computer, but also to break up these large rooms, again, into entity zones. Because if you have a group of players, interacting with a bunch of NPCs in one part of a UGF, the demand might be so much, where they might have to break it down to its own server. Your reputation with Bearing has increased. How do you like discounts on guns? I love discounts on guns. They also talked about how these rooms, will have themes. And again, the theme is not only the visual but also the what its purpose is. Depending on what the type of facility. So, obviously you can see in a lot of the concept art how a lot of it, there's a lot of focus around mining and processing of ores and then refining. And so they mentioned those things specifically, how there will be processing rooms, refinery rooms, as well as you going off in these random corridors into less developed areas, and which essentially just ties the UGF into caves, which are also made using the procedural locations tool for mining. Because you're going to go down there and you'll get jobs to go mine in these UGFs, as part of a UGF owned by Shubin, or who knows who else. And that's ties into, like we were talking about, there's one image in here with the server racks, server and data racks, whether it's server data storage or research. I imagine there'll be a theme on science facilities, with a whole bunch of clean rooms with white lab coat people, like you saw in the 2019 CitizenCon, except for below ground. And then zone 4 is organic locations. So you've spread out from zone 3 and you're moving out into the smaller passages, in caverns where it's less of a constructed facility and there's more rock exposure. There's, plant life, potentially, flora and fauna. Areas that are partially either completely excavated but not built up, or partially excavated. Abandoned areas. We saw some of the abandoned underground facility concept art. And this is where you'd have a lot of your tunnels and passageways leading, like in this image right here, leading to caverns and caves, cave networks. Which is distinctly mentioned in the lore in multiple locations. And you could potentially have additional entrances, where you can, find this entrance, into a cave network, and then inadvertently or maybe on purpose find a entrance into an underground facility for stealthing your way in there, sneaking your way in there to do a mission or do certain gameplay. Maybe you're just, doing that to steal stuff. It could be something like that. But yeah, so that's what I have for notes on the CitizenCon 2952, the new Underground video. For Underground Playground, the ISC that was 2 weeks ago, at the very beginning, the guy who was going through it, and you could tell that he was, not used to speaking in public, but I appreciated what he was doing. He told us that they are midway through White Box. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this playing real quick.
And while he's getting the next thing lined up, they haven't said specifically farming, but they did say they're working on making underground facilities encompass all of Star Citizen's planned gameplay.
Yep.
Not just stuff that's in the game now, but all future gameplay as well will have some version that is done inside of the UGF. So for stuff like the Endeavor kind of gameplay for farming, where it's very atmosphere controlled and growing things in specific planters, and like we have the Outpost now, where it's kind of like in hydroponics and things. That kind of farming can definitely be done in UGFs. So whatever gameplay has ever been talked about,
the right lighting
will be in UGFs.
Yeah. He said they're midway through White Box, and that's the Montreal Sandbox team. So here they are, midway through White Box. The video posted here. So this is when they posted the video. And so it was probably recorded sometime in February. So they are midway through White Box. We don't know when White Box ends, when they move into Gray Box, if this is all White Box here, or if at some point in this sprint they go into Gray Box. But if at, essentially somewhere in here, they're midway through White Box, that's a really good thing. And granted, that's incorporating some of the EU sandbox work as well. But they're moving right along with the production of these underground facilities. So let's go back to the little video, and we'll keep playing that, and I'll just read off. I've got a few quotes as well as a few little notes that I made on this one that I thought were particularly poignant and interesting. So,
And I do imagine that they will tell us when they switch over to gray box in the monthly reports. So we'll know about it at the end of the month, but it'll be in there. So stay tuned to the monthly reports and for our read throughs.
Yes, yeah, because when they say gray box and stuff like that, Nazeris and I will cheer, and we'll have confetti. Yeah. So he says, and some of these quotes or little bits of information are interesting in context with the lore that we're going to go over towards the end here. So he says, anything that exists currently in the Star Citizen universe and what's to come will also be in here. So try and keep that in mind when we're playing through the spaces. So if you go back, a silly beard. Yeah, Nazeris, you're going to have to get like a pirate beard or something. Yar. But he was in reference to gameplay. So like Nazeris was talking about with farming, it isn't just going to be mushrooms growing underground. You're going to be able to farm anything in here. And we'll explain why when we get into the lore here in a second. But what's, if you go back and watch the ISC and you think about what he's going through and what he talks about in reference to gameplay of what we have now and what's planned, it becomes a lot more clear why the sandbox team is designing these facilities in the way they are, especially in context with the other things that Nazeris and I have gone over in previous episodes, with resource network management, engineering, whatever you want to call it these days, with quantum, all these different aspects of the game tying in together. He also mentioned, as he was entering the facility, there's airlocks if on a planet without an atmosphere or a hostile environment. Again, think about that when we go through the lore here in a few minutes. The next quote that I thought was interesting, he says, so this, when you first turn up to the UGF, this is when you first turn up to the UGF. He was walking through the lobby area. But you first turn up to the UGF, and your rep is, rock bottom. You're going to come here first, and this is the kind of introduction to whatever company owns the UGF, and we'll be getting some missions from in this place, the corporate offices and the above ground structure. So I thought that was really interesting because, you may get, you may not have a reputation with the, bearing, for example. But you may get introduced to a mission giver at that bearing facility who, by someone else that you do have good rep with, and that's how the reputation system can tie into these UGFs of, hey, you have a good rep with another, sort of adjacent organization to bearing, but you want to go do stuff for bearing, or you need to do stuff for bearing in order to achieve your own gameplay goals. It was interesting that he mentioned, reps specifically, tying into these UGFs. It isn't just a location; it's a mission location, a gameplay location where you'll go there to start off, and that'll be a great place to start out, with building up your rep with a certain corporation. Especially, maybe a small one, like Naz was talking about, the sort of sequence of gameplay. When they went into, it was like a zone 2, the cargo area with the cargo office, it was really apparent how much of the resources, if you didn't already put 2 and 2 together with looking at the concept art, but looking at the cargo office and the cargo area, and then if you go and look at the cargo decks on space stations, how much of the resources are being reused, and art pieces, what have you, are being reused from space stations, which are built using the procedural locations tool as part of the making new UGFs, which are being built using the procedural locations tool. Now, obviously, they have to develop these UGFs, both the rooms and everything, and the workflow, and then incorporate that into the procedural locations tool. But once they have done that, they'll be able to make UGFs especially the smaller ones, essentially, 80% of the way, push button, and it's done in a few minutes, just like they talked about in the monthly reports, for doing that with stations using the procedural locations tool. And if you want I put a from our procedural locations tool episode, I took not only I linked that in the show notes, but I also put the clip from that monthly report where there was it was mentioned that they will be using the procedural locations tool for space stations, caves, underground facilities, etc. I also thought it was interesting where in that ISC, he went down to the sort of level 3 or zone 3 of the facility using the pedestrian elevator. And so we have faster on-demand pedestrian elevators, just like we have for space stations. But there's also the bigger cargo freight vehicle elevators that are done, they go up and down automatically. So once they have a certain amount of stuff put on them, they go up and down automatically. You don't control them. You can ride down them, but they go slower. They're carrying a heavy load, but it's basically a freight elevator for a UGF. So I imagine much of the tech and the way that freight elevators are being made for space stations and what have you, and spaceports will play into how these things work in UGFs. But I thought it was interesting that at least we have access to the pedestrian elevators that go a lot faster. But you, in coordination with that, the quote that I thought was interesting, it says, "Now the depth of the first sublayer is going to change in every UGF. That's going to be procedurally generated, a lot like the rooms as well." And so not only are you not going to have the same length of an elevator ride, the same depth of UGF, some are going to be deeper, versus spread out. Others are going to be shallow and more, and more spread out under the ground. The layout is going to be dynamic and procedurally generated based off of the archetype for the UGF that you're going to, as well as like where it is, what sort of planet it's on. Just like how the space stations that are developed using the procedural location tool aren't all the same orientation. It's not the same thing. If you remember that video that Nazeris and I have shown many times, it's on the Turbulent website. It shows multiple layouts being built, and the rooms and the corridors branching out in all different directions, just with different clicks of the button, because it's procedural, but somewhat it's logically randomized. So from the first sublayer, you have access to other rooms or wings going through those larger corridors. And another interesting quote from that, he said, "So as we release more content for this, you're going to get more expansive wings with different themes and that kind of thing." So, like right now, it seemed like they are very much working on the sort of mining, processing and refining type facility. Underground facility for underground mining. But as they build up the different themes, like we talked about, those rooms and wings are going to offer a whole lot more content and gameplay, and are going to not only have different options, but they're going to look a lot differently, and they're also going to be bigger. So, like he showed us a medium sized underground facility. You can only imagine how big the large ones are going to be. I like to think of it kind of like the difference between the your Everest Harbor or Baijini Point stations versus the size of your rest stop stations. If your rest stop stations are mediums, and the low Earth orbit stations are larges, that's the type of scale that you're looking at. Is in reference to sort of like an internal volume almost. I also thought it was interesting how they're going to have security checkpoints, which will verify your credentials. So you have to have a certain amount of rep to get into certain areas within the UGF. Not only do you have to have rep just to get into the UGF, but certain areas will be blocked off based off of your reputation. You'll have to, until you've done enough missions with them, and gain enough trust, you can't go into this wing to meet another mission giver. or to be access certain other aspects of the UGF. That could be so much as mining in a dangerous area. You have to have mined so much for Shubin Interstellar before they'll let you go down there, just because there's too much risk for them. But there's also ways to get around. They're building in ways to get around those checkpoints. So you can sneak your way and stealth your way in there if you want to, in order to steal stuff or do espionage, what have you. He said right now, based off what they're building as part of this initial, phase where they're building out the workflow for these UGFs in order to incorporate them into the procedural locations tool. They have 17 different rooms. In each room, we'll have 2 overlays, and 17 different rooms in various sizes. So that's, essentially, 34 different rooms that they can put together. And but the difference is each room has 2 different overlays. We don't know what those overlays are. I'm thinking that one's going to be, the sort of mining, processing, refining type, associated with Shubin or something. But then the other will be the abandoned, for placing in places like Pyro and Nyx. And, I've heard people say, oh, well, there aren't underground facilities in Pyro and Nyx. Oh, but there are. So we'll get into that here in a second. The last quote that I thought was interesting from the ISC was this is from Jared at the very end. And it says, the procedural assembly of multiple room types will enable nearly every aspect of Star Citizen's current gameplay to occur inside of them. Procedural assembly of multiple room types. So the UGFs will be procedurally assembled in a logical fashion, based off of algorithms that are built into the procedural locations tool, just like they have for space stations. But I'm really looking forward to seeing the gameplay that we have access to. So, moving on, I'm going to pause this. Actually, we can close it. So let's talk about the lore. And this is what really got me very excited when they first showed these off at CitizenCon. Because I've been reading all the Galactopedia updates, and I keep on seeing mentions of underground facilities and mining facilities underground, blah, 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 as part of the Galactopedia updates, regarding planets and star systems. So I made a little spreadsheet, and this is just what I could find just by searching underground on the Galactopedia, and then a specific mention that I have in this tab over here regarding Pyro. And so we have 15 different mentions of underground facilities in the Galactopedia right now. The Galactopedia doesn't even have half of these star systems that are known and that we have like comlinks and stuff for in-game or on the Galactopedia. So the number of mentions, specific mentions of underground facilities is going to be a lot more than this, but we already have 15 specific mentions. So the first one, I'm not going to read through all of these, is on Baker 4 of a mining, when I just put, so I put the system, the planet were specifically mentioned, and then what type was mentioned in regards to that specific mention of underground facilities. And actually, let's look at the Baker one, because that one's actually kind of, out there. So the GIO, which is on Baker 4 in the Baker system, is the Geological Investigation Outpost. Is a mining outpost owned and operated by Shubin Interstellar on Baker 4. GIO mostly consists of a vast network of interconnected mining tunnels deep underground. So, deep underground mining tunnels marked on the planet's surface by a group of utilitarian buildings. To me, this mostly speaks to sort of a small Shubin mining facility with a lot of tunnels underground, and you'd probably have like a small processing facility. So you wouldn't have a big above ground presence, but the underground facility, as it were, would be integrated with a lot of a very large cave network compared to some of the other facilities. You'd have a lot excavated but not built up. But it's interesting, this little mention, in 2945, Shubin held the Shubin Mine Rescue Challenge in GIO. an event in which participants competed to win prizes in categories such as vertical rescue, it's high angle vertical rescue, firefighting, and zero-G accident rescue. Okay, so to me, this is lore equals gameplay 100%, because they're talking about a underground facility, but then they mention gameplay that occurred as part of a mine rescue challenge, but you could get missions to go and rescue people in underground facilities. Back in the, you have to go through the underground facility to get the mission, then you have to pick up the gear, in this room as part of the underground facility, and they went down this tunnel, but we don't know where they are, and they haven't reported in. We need you to go find them and rescue them, because maybe, for whatever reason, the narrative potential is huge, but with the gameplay that they're building, with all the vaulting and stuff, that they're working on, I could totally see us being, having to, in order to, part of doing jobs for Shubin, one of their mining facilities, being able to, take on rescue missions, or firefighting down in the refinery, those sorts of things. And so that's why I included this, not because it's a super direct mention of a specific underground facility, but the gameplay associated with a mining facility and the tunnels attached to it. We also have, and it's not in the Galactic P, or actually is it? Yeah. So in the Banshee system, you have the planet of Lorona, and on Lorona you have multiple underground cities supported by a mining focused economy, because the star, I think, is either a pulsar or something like that, emits super harmful radiation. So everything's built underground, but there's a lot of mining on Lorona that support the multiple underground cities. So not just underground facilities, but they'll be able to make, they plan to make cities using this tech underground. But Caselli, the capital, is the largest subterranean city in the UEE. So this, suggests that they won't just be on Lorona. There are going to be underground, cities on other planets, based off of, what the environment and not only the star system, but as well as the planet is going to be like. And so there's an article about Caselli itself. This one was interesting, and if you're a fan of the Tavaran, I thought this one was kind of interesting as a location where you might run into more Tavaran than most places. But on the planet of Voska, which is Elysium 3, which is the home system of the Tavaran that we conquered, the arcology Reza's Landing is, along with many other settlements, is constructed under a protective dome due to persistent violent sandstorms. So I thought it was interesting because for a long time I didn't think that there were going to be domes and dome facilities, dome cities in Star Citizen, just because there weren't all that many mentions of them. But there actually are several. But the interesting part about Reza's Landing is it was is a city arcology built to withstand the harsh environment of Voska. The structure was constructed by research company Rayari Inc., which we already have their outposts on Microtech and other places, in order to protect their equipment from damage to persistent sandstorms on the surface. So Rayari, for whatever reason, built, I'm assuming it's a research facility on this planet. But the company would eventually allow non-affiliated residents to move into this domed structure. But over the years, several underground expansions have been built into it, built until it reached the size of a small city. So again, underground facility, but it's an underground facility that's part of a domed structure above the surface. So the surface structure and surface thing will look different than what they are showing us, but the same tech for building the underground part could be used to build this. But I imagine a lot of it will be associated with research company Rayari Inc. Hence part of why the research type overlay is really brought up to the forefront. Another interesting example is Hades. We know that the Hades system is where the Hadesians lived and they wiped themselves out millions of years ago. But they talk about how the surface of like Hades 2 and Hades 3 has basically just been blown to bits, and the environment has eroded much of what was left of the abandoned cities on the surface. But there are most of the ruins that are still intact lie buried beneath the surface. So underground ruins, that could be used, built much the same way that underground facilities are. Helios, and these next three, and it's ironic that they're in the, I put these in alphabetical order, both on the spreadsheet but on the tabs here. But Helios is a ice planet, so it's covered in thick sheets of ice and lacks a substantial atmosphere. But the UE military operates a network of outposts on Helios 4 located deep underground. So not only do you have a different archetype, military underground facilities, but these military underground facilities, instead of being, in normal rock caves, would be connected or built into the ice caves that they're building. So the organic aspects of the underground facility that they talked about, instead of it being rock, the environment will be based out the organic environment around the underground portions of the facility will vary depending on what the underground looks like for the either that part of the planet or that planet itself. So ice caves versus sandy caves versus rock caves, what have you. Keel 2, in the Keel system, which Keel 3 is where the Outsiders, that cult group that took over the planet, and it's I forget what's the name of the Good Doctor map from Star Marine.
Yep.
But Keel 2 is unsuitable for terraforming, but is supposedly very rich in resources. But the UE has prohibited any mining operations and will pursue and detain anyone who attempt to mine illegally. So could potentially have very profitable mining opportunities there. But locals believe that the planet houses a secret underground military installation, though no evidence to support this claim has been found. So there could be a hidden military UGF on Keel 2 that you might get a mission to find or infiltrate as part of gaining reputation or building a reputation with maybe an outlaw organization, or something like that. But I thought that one was pretty interesting. The last military mention is, of course, the UE Marine base on Corin, which is Killian, not Keel, Killian 9. But the Marines maintain an extensive underground base used as their headquarters and primary training ground. So I would imagine this would be multiple large UGFs connected together, by large corridors. But Corin is a very hostile, sort of ice winter planet. So again, probably like ice cave types. Nyx. So Nyx mentions abandoned mining facilities, due to, or for Nyx 1, used to be rich with valuable minerals, but was extensively mined. So there's the mining facilities on Nyx 1 are largely abandoned. So this is someplace where you would see a lot of the abandoned UGFs, where they showed some of the concept art of what that might look like. But they're sometimes used as temporary shelter by visitors. So, maybe the conditions on the surface aren't great, but if you need to hide in Nyx because you're being pursued by pirates or who knows what, you might be able to hide in one of these UGFs, or hide stuff that you want to keep in one of these UGFs. The Oberon system is interesting because the neutron star makes any above ground colonization profoundly dangerous. So it says nearly all homesteads in Oberon are located underground. And so Gone is a planet that's being mined. Um, apparently has vast deposits of diamonds that have yet to be discovered. Um, the uh, the environmental conditions make it difficult for automated mining facilities to operate. So most miners that operate on Gone are independent. So probably smaller mining type UGFs um, on the surface of Gone versus the larger corporate ones owned by Shubin. So you might see like independent UGFs, kind of like with the homesteads and outposts for the Rastar system. Yeah, unless you want to glow like a nightlight. Uriel, Oberon 2, was that planet that essentially failed terraforming, and all the colonists that bought into the terraforming promises were essentially abandoned there. But they have managed to eke out a living on Uriel and have essentially formed settlements underground that are there are some above ground structures, but essentially probably what you would see kind of like with the UGFs, small above ground structure connected to large underground facilities. So the vast majority of people on Uriel live in a warren of interconnected underground towns organized around familial lineages. So you'll have instead of just a facility, it's a town, it's a settlement. So that's a different type of overlay. Oratani 1, which is the Oratani system, is the one where the jump point to it collapsed. Before the jump point collapsed, the company that was terraforming or working on terraforming the system was building a temporary underground base to keep their surveyors safe from the harsh sun. So, maybe when we rediscover the jump point to Oratani, you'll find that that underground base has been expanded upon, and kept going. Yeah, radiation sickness will definitely be a thing in game. That's definitely something that medical gameplay you're going to have to treat, and you're going to have debuffs from radiation sickness, and get permanent injury, that you'll have to treat. So the last two mentions, we'll do Pike first, because Pike is in Terra. Terra 2. Pike is Terra 2. Vast, rich reserves of resources on the planet have made it host to thousands of mining operations and refineries. While many outposts are built underground or in sealed arcologies to protect workers, processes are typically automated when possible in order to minimize human exposure to the elements. So you won't see a whole lot of people in these underground facilities, but you'll probably have to go into these facilities to either do mining, but also to maintain the facilities. So doing repair work for these automated facilities to keep them running. But in the Terror system, you'll have a ton of UGFs, for mining and processing and refining. And the reason I thought a lot of people have said, "Oh, there's not underground facilities in Pyro," it's because a lot of people have only read the old lore for Pyro, for the planets where you couldn't go down to them. Well, in the Untold Tales lore piece about the Prophet of Pyro, they specifically mention how the Pyro 2 had lots of mining and lots of mining facilities and underground mines, and the underground mines are where people hear the prophet speak to them. But it isn't just one location, and that's where. So I don't want to do like spoiler alerts, but I encourage you to go read this. So at the very end, it says, while a fire rat's beliefs surrounding the prophet remain a closely held secret, Richardson's research has led her to develop her own theory. I don't think the prophet of Pyro is confined to one special mine on Pyro 2, as in there's multiple. I believe that powerful bursts of energy produced by solar flares are somehow collected and amplified by large metal deposits inside the mines, meaning when conditions are right, the prophet of Pyro can be heard in several spots across the planet. So if you're going mining in one of these abandoned mines, looking for maybe stuff that was left over, or maybe you've made your base in one of these UGFs, um, you know, you might hear the prophet of Pyro speaking eerily and hear strange noises in these UGFs depending on the solar flare behavior from Pyro's star. But yeah, that's what I have for UGFs, not only their development, but where you might find them and what they might be like from the lore and what they've told us thus far. Naz, did you have anything to add to any of that? I know we covered a lot of stuff pretty quickly.
No, that was really good. I enjoyed it. You and your spreadsheets.
Yeah, I love spreadsheets.
Yeah. It's really cool that they've been placing these tidbits all over the universe already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the fact that there's already 15, pretty direct mentions of UGFs, and we're not even halfway done with adding all the star systems onto the Galactopedia, and so it seems like with each update there's a planet, that gets mentioned that has a UGF on it, and there's a few other things that kind of sounded like UGFs or might be UGFs, as well as a lot of underground mentions of underground caves and caverns. So there could be more, as well as other, and this was just me using the Galactopedia, and I knew the Prophet of Pyro piece was also mentioned in there. Oh, so I also included a couple notes on honorable mentions. So because I checked the SC Tools wiki, and I just went on the SC Tools wiki and I clicked underground, I searched underground, and it talked about a lot of the links for the underground facilities we had, but it also searches the OG com links for the different systems, and so on the pages for Cestulus, which is a planet in the Davian system, as well as Armitage in Orion, they both had mentions of, or Cestulus had mentions of underground cities. So Cestulus, I forget what I think it's like Leta or something, or no, Jata, I think is the name of the city, the capital city. It's not the largest city, but it's essentially a domed city. But it was originally said to be a domed city because of the thin atmosphere with extensive underground aspects of it as well, because the dome city got full, so they started building underground. But then that was you can go and see that on the SE Tools wiki page for it. But if you go to the com link has been updated and has no mention of the word underground or underground aspects of the city. Same thing with Armitage in Orion. I forgot the name of the city, but the planet Armitage, and I don't remember if that's the name of the city on Armitage, but the Orion was one of the systems that's the first system conquered by the Vandul, but there's still humans left there, survivors that have eked out a living, hiding from the Vandul, and it was originally said that they hid underground. And you can read about that on the SC Tools wiki, but if you go to the comlink now, the comlink has apparently been updated, and it just says that they live in sealed buildings. So the buildings are all boarded up and sealed in order to not give away the presence of the humans still living on the planet. So I'm assuming the comlinks have since been edited, but because you can see on the SC Tools wiki that it was originally that information was copied from the original comlinks. The other thing that I didn't put in there, but as another honorable mention, is Cabal 3. And the Cabal system is connected to Elysium. But that's the Cabal 3 is the planet where, or there had been Tavaran that apparently lived, and there were cities there that were apparently abandoned before the first Tavaran War. But when the Tavaran forgot all about the system and the cities there. And so when humanity discovered the jump point to the Cabal system, they found on Cabal 3 that there are these most well-preserved examples of Tavaran cities and architecture there. but there is a underground cache of old Tavaran tech. Among that tech, and this is a quote from a Spectrum dispatch called News Update Advocacy Archive, and the link is in the show notes as part of it's right here on this spreadsheet that I made. But it's a conversation between a UE Marine general, who the UE Marines were the ones exploring the planet, and but it's a conversation between a UE Marine general and a higher up within the advocacy, the space FBI. But he says it's also mentioned that an underground cache of old Tavaran tech. Among that tech, we found weapons that had been manufactured within the past 10 to 15 years. So there could be, whether we'll get access to it or if this is just lore flavoring, we don't know. But on Cabal 3, there could be a underground facility storing, Tavaran weapons, that of recent manufacture. Maybe you could get a mission to infiltrate said mission and steal some of that tech, or steal the blueprints, or something. Steal information. We don't know, but I thought it was an interesting honorable mention.
Indeed.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Looking forward to seeing more about this. And like you said, when they mention the UGFs going into Greybox, hopefully they'll give us another update, like in a sprint report for ISC to show us what that looks like.
Yep, I imagine they would. No dying.
Yeah. Whenever we get to talking, my throat gets dry. But
fortunately, next time we do a whatever this is. I forgot what the name of it was. Anomaly. You won't have to do most talking, because next time it's my turn.
Your turn.
Woot.
No spoilers on what that's going to be.
Okay, I don't have any yet.
But yeah, that's Nazeris. Unless you have anything to add, that's all we have for this episode. Did you want to talk about what you've got going on over at the Nova Forge, or what your plans are, what you're working on?
So tomorrow is supposedly org day, where I take the org and we go and try and do gameplay. I will attempt to do that. I don't know how successful it will be. I haven't done a whole bunch of content creation as of late. How many Novas have you forged? That's a good question. But I have been actually throwing a lot of weight into game dev as of recently, so that's been a really big plus. Every time I look at it, I'm torn between Unreal and Unity. I know how to use Unity. I don't know how to use Unreal, but Unreal is so pretty, so gosh darn pretty. Anyway, so we may do some game dev stuff soon-ish. I just need to figure out a schedule because my sleeping schedule has severely changed. I'm trying to get in bed by 10 o'clock, so I can actually wake up and have a morning, actually do stuff like a normal human being. So that's what I'm trying to do there. Lots of life improvement stuff. So content is not like technically on pause, but it is in the furthest back of the bus seat. But it will eventually happen again. Just life comes first, and once life is stable, then content can be made again. That's the plan.
Oh boy, do I hear you. Yeah. Yeah, so, and I don't know what my schedule is going to be like with this course. The good thing is, like, I teach this stuff, and the Army is making when I came into the Army as a flight medic, I had a waiver for this course because I had already been through a shorter civilian version, and I had my board certification as a critical care paramedic and flight paramedic, and I had a couple years of experience doing it, so they gave me a waiver. They're like, okay, you don't need to go to this course. It's a waste of time. Well, they got rid of that waiver. Oh. And when they got rid of the waiver, they gave everybody who came in under the waiver process 2 years to go through this course. And so my unit is like, okay, well, we need you to go through this course because I can't in order to be an instructor for the people in my unit who are coming into the unit, and in order to certify them, I have to have this course. And so finally going to it. But from what I'm told, you do 3 weeks of classroom stuff, followed by 5 weeks of clinical rotations, in the hospital, in the ICU, the operating room, the ER, that sort of thing. But you don't have clinical rotations every day because it's based off of availability, with a number of people in the class. And so if you're not on a clinical rotation, you're in study hall. So I don't know what study hall entails. I'm hoping that study hall entails me bringing my laptop to class and working on content stuff. And because the other good thing is the test at the end of the course is the board certification test that I already have done.
Nice.
And I already have the certification, so I don't have to take the test. And so I literally just have to show up and not be a fuck up to pass the course. I don't have to study. And so I'm hoping that the study hall time I can use to work on getting B-roll for my videos, work on podcast stuff, for what we're doing. And hopefully, by the time I'm done with this course, maybe I'll have enough downtime that I can finish my video for boarding actions that I've been saying that I'm going to finish forever. But I am going to bring my mic and the mic stand that came with it, and my Elgato face cam, my laptop, so that way we may not be able to maintain the schedule that we're wanting to while I'm gone, but I'm hoping that we can at least get a few episodes out intermittently based off of what days I have off and what days you have available. So we'll just have to play it by ear, but I'm going to bring the equipment so I can at least continue to hopefully be productive. We'll just have to wait and see how much downtime I have.
Back in time just for 4.0.
I'll be back in time. I come back the week before Invictus launch week. So 319 should be launching right when I get back or having launched.
I'll give you a debrief on how 318 went.
Yeah, not to jinx it, but yeah, I'm hoping to get, based off of the free time I have between now and when I leave on Sunday, I'm hoping I might be able to get a few hours into 318 towards the end of the week, depending on how things go for the rest of this week, but we'll see. I may just miss out on 318 live entirely if they can't get everything together. Because I played in PTU, but not a ton. Right. But yeah, I'll be gone, and I just have my laptop, and I can't play SC on my laptop. So
you need to get like a streaming thing so you can play games remotely.
Yeah, gosh, that just seems like a lot of work and kind of jank. I don't know. We'll see.
It's basically just like playing a game. It's just in a window, the entire PC within a window.
Yeah, but you have to rely on a good internet connection to do it.
Yeah, and that is a definite necessity.
Yeah.
Necessity.
And I'll be living in a hotel for 2 months, so the Marriott that I'm staying at says that the suite has high-speed internet. We'll see about that.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah,
we will indeed.
Their definition of high speed and yours and mine are two very different things, especially for our use case.
Yes, so, very much so. Yeah.
So I might not even be able to stream the podcasts. We'll just have to see.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see what I can get done.
Indeed.
Yeah, not going to invest in a good used gaming laptop just because I've got too much money invested in 2 gaming PCs. I have this tower over here, that tower over there. One is the gaming PC, the other one is the streaming PC. But even the streaming PC... I'm sure it would have been
a thought if the other one didn't die on you.
Yeah. Yeah, the streaming PC is an i7 12700K with 64 gigabytes of DDR5 4400 megahertz.
Jeez.
An M.2 and an SSD and a 3070. So even the streaming PC is pretty beastly, but it's it's the Alienware.
Just drill a handle onto that, bring it with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. All right.
Well, I will just want to say thank you everybody who's still hanging out with us in chat for coming in and being a part of the episode. And if you're watching this live on YouTube later, I won't be able to get it up tomorrow, but it should be up. Let's see, tomorrow's Wednesday, so should be up on Thursday with the individual segments following after that. But if you have any feedback or any questions, please leave a comment in the comments or hit up Nazeris or I in our Discords. And don't forget to like and subscribe because that helps the channel to grow. And this channel is dedicated to charity. So any and all monetization for Twitch and YouTube goes to stackup.org. So consider, if you like what Nazeris and I do, you like the content that we produce on my channel, please consider subscribing as well as donating. Oh, last but not least, this Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. or 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Mountain, I'm planning on doing the latest episode of the Armchair Admirals and Generals podcast with iterating and Night Cobb. I think this is our 4th episode. Yeah. So if you can join us live for that, great. If not, because it's, I think it's St. Patrick's Day. Totally understand, but that will get posted to YouTube as well. And we're going to be doing another sort of yin and yang 2-part thing where iterating and I are going to be asking Night Cobb questions about how we're going to be talking about the first part about how Night Cobb being a submariner, how the submarines sort of stay hidden, stay off the sonar radar, what they do in order to avoid detection. And we're going to be talking about how that relates to sort of being a pirate and ambushing prey, avoiding detection by your prey, but also from bounty hunters, UE military, talking about that sort of stuff in the first part, how those sort of things, strategies and best practices might align with the real world. And then we're going to flip it on its end. And because Atira Kell is an intel officer with the Army, we're going to be talking about how best practices and strategies and techniques for gathering and analyzing intel in the real world might apply to in-game for like bounty hunting and tracking down pirates, mercenary work in order to find these these pirates, or other, ne'er-do-wells who don't want to be found. So that's the plan for Armchair Admirals and Generals this Friday. So stay tuned. The event will be posted in my Discord as well as on my Twitter. But yeah, that's it. And Nazeris, if you want to sign us off for the evening.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's been great. Nice, dense episode. Lots of stuff that we have to keep track of for the next week. But as I say every time, thank you all for coming. And as always, be kind.
Let's see. Blizzred says, "Oh, he redeemed the sound alert and it didn't play."
Good.
Huh. No, Atira and Night Cobb both know. We've been talking about it. Alrighty. Night, everybody.